And we are live. Okay, so everyone introduce themselves. So let's start with Danny.
Hi, I'm Danny.
Danny provides free helicopter rides for people of a certain political leaning.
Yeah,
Oh.
I know. I'm a charitable man. It's, you got to give back sometimes, I think.
Okay, Pinochet.
And now we have Subjective over here, who says everything is subjective.
Everything
He's a
is subjective.
postmodernist bigot.
I'm not postmodernist, I'm post-structuralist, guys. Gender is a social construct. Potatoes are a social construct. Memes are the DNA of our souls. That's all.
He's probably going to be the first one to get kicked. We have Mitch the Ripper. Hello?
I'm just a smartass in a top hat and a monocle.
Classy guy. We have Lane here, the anime character.
I'm actually an anime girl in real life, but I sound remarkably like a guy. But please don't respect my pronouns, though. They are xenomorph and attack helicopter. So.
Okay, cool.
I just shitpost on.
I'm getting some turbine.
I just shitpost on Twitter, and I do some activism.
You even do the
some
YouTubes.
No. It's irrelevant.
Everything's irrelevant.
Everything happens on Twitter first, so why bother?
We did have a Bones, but he's having technical difficulties because it's kind of hard when you're just a skeleton who rose from the dead. So, you know, they're not really as up to date with the whole technology thing. We also had Darren, who was in here briefly, and I have no idea who that is. Blame Subjective over here.
Yeah, blame me.
He left.
He left. Just everybody blame me.
Mycroft wants to kick Lane. That's so mean.
No problem.
We need anime girls.
He's
well,
still
admittedly, in this context, kick can mean two different things.
Yeah. Maybe he wants to actually physically injure him, but that's subjective. Ha ha ha.
He's going to run with the subjective thing all night. I'm going to have a cow.
Okay, well, we're going to start off with talking about what we're meant to talk about, which is the C-16 bill in Canada that is forcing us really to respect people's pronouns quite literally. So,
as an American,
refer to people as Z, you are now guilty of harassment. Yay! Kurt here, everyone.
The Human Rights Act was set up.
Does this law have a provision that that states that everyone who has an unusual pronoun must staple it to their fucking forehead? Because otherwise, how are the rest of us supposed to know? And plus, I'll volunteer for the stapling.
I don't think this bill was thought through.
Okay, so I actually kind of know a bit about it. So the Canadian Human Rights Commission was set up under the Canadian Human Rights Act, and the Canadian Human Rights Commission defines one of the grounds of discrimination is called harassment. Now, harassment is a form of discrimination. It involves any unwanted physical or verbal behavior that offends or humiliates you. Gender identity
so they
and
want
gender
to outlaw
expression.
friendship.
Gender identity and gender expression are one of the grounds you cannot be discriminated on. So basically, if someone says something that's verbally offensive to you by not referring to your pronouns, that is discriminatory. And they do define gender identity as being between male or female or neither.
Or both.
Yeah. Whatever the fuck they are. So that's a bit of a background to it now.
I mean, at that point, it's just like normalizing schizophrenia. It's like, today I'm a boy, tomorrow I'm a girl.
Sounds to me like they're trying to outlaw friendship, to be honest.
What I'm really curious, you know, like French canon, do you know why French is like a gendered language where words are masculine or feminine? Like, are they going to have like, oh, this word is neither? So, yeah. That'll be interesting if they try and change the actual language of French.
If we're gonna talk about the French language, Is surrender masculine or feminine?
Surrender. I'm not sure.
I feel
Because it
like
seems
that
to apply
seems
to the country as a
sexist,
whole.
right? Like the
It's
whole
definitely
French language
feminine,
is just sexist, right? At that point.
Well, like I
They
mean,
have
the
already-
French flag was literally white at one point. Literally
They
white.
have already started degendering a gendered language.
It's white power flag right there.
They have already started degendering a gendered language with Spanish, I believe, because you've got like Latin X's now, because it would usually be Latina, Latino, and now it's Latin X. And I think for most words, they have some kind of construction like that at this point. It's hideous, but
The Latinx thing is a pile of poorly constructed dog shit.
Is that what that Latinx thing was?
Because,
I saw that. I was like, well,
honestly,
what is that?
Latinx sounds like a furniture polish.
It's a linguistics nightmare, in my opinion. I
Yeah.
don't imagine the Quebecois are really happy about having to respect pronouns or something. So.
No, I can't imagine anybody.
Try Latinx for your furniture polishing needs.
Yeah,
Or
actually,
so.
it's a bit harder with French though because of how you use words.
Yeah,
Um,
I can't imagine it. But the French are
Yeah.
a bit more like isolationist in general, so they'll be like, no pronouns for you, Madame X. So yeah, like
that was terrible.
I wasn't trying to be good.
Well, if the French are isolationists, where did all the bad drivers come from?
France. Oh no, Italy as well. Italy. Oh god.
I think
They're not
that- I think a
necessarily
lot of
bad
them actually
drivers,
came
they're
from the
just angry
Middle East.
drivers.
Reckless.
I'm just saying that it looks like a
Impatient.
lot of them came from the Middle East.
You gotta watch out for those
Isolation.
trucks in peace.
Yes, exactly.
What are you
Trucks
trying to
and
say,
carts in
Bacon?
peace.
I can just see the stream going all over the place now. We're like talk about French drivers.
Did anyone catch the Jordan Peterson thing where he was addressing Parliament?
Yeah, so I actually was gonna play that, but
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
there's not gonna be any
We couldn't
sound.
get
yeah.
yeah, which is kind of the important bit.
Yeah.
That's
See, yeah, that wouldn't work,
rip.
unfortunately.
Well,
Rip.
if there's no sound, then you've
Unless
done their job
someone
for
could.
them.
I'll try.
Oh yeah, that's it. We could screen share it, and then Fenian can be Peterson, and Danny can be the other guy.
Okay. Well, of course, the
I'm
metaphysics
the
of
other guy.
Pepe is where I'll start then. I've been watching his lectures, and they're actually really fascinating.
He's
yeah.
brilliant.
Oh, he's brilliant. No, yeah.
Yeah, he's
Until
probably
he gets
one of
into
my
the
favorite
narrative
TAs.
literalism.
He
narrative
despises nihilism.
realism.
He despises nihilism, and it's
Everyone
like,
hates nihilists.
because it's fucking retarded. It's like, okay,
It's not technically wrong, though, is it?
no, but it's not technically wrong, but it's just like kind of a okay, life is meaningless. Where do we go from there? Like, it's just sort
You
of
find
like,
your own meaning,
Guys,
right?
there's no
Well,
point.
there's
yeah,
a
but a lot of
couple
people don't. A pure nihilist doesn't. They just go, yeah, everything's meaningless. Philosophy is meaningless. Morals. are
Everyone
meaningless.
finds their own meaning, otherwise they'd kill themselves.
I've met someone who's just a pure nihilist, and it's like the most depressing thing ever. It's like why haven't you just killed yourself yet? Like,
Well, I'm a nihilist, and
Well,
I
wouldn't
mean,
the nihilists say that
it
their
doesn't matter.
suicide is pointless?
So we're talking about nihilism then?
yeah.
we are now.
We're all over
yeah.
the place.
Yeah, we were going to be talking about weird laws.
Why would you
and
bother
LC16,
giving helicopter rides?
Now we're on
Why would you
nihilism.
bother giving helicopter rides if you're a nihilist? Why would you even care? It's
Yeah.
like, well,
What do you mean?
just fuck it, you know?
Nihilism
We're gonna
is
give a
a
framework.
small
I can.
standpoint. That's all it is.
Well,
I'm not
let's
following you
steer
guys
it
at
back
all.
a bit. Let's steer it back a bit. What is the purpose of law?
What do you mean?
Oh,
Things
What,
protect
on
society.
topic! Yay, Mitch!
Wow.
what
Is
is
it
the
to
purpose?
protect society? That's where I'm gonna go.
Yeah, so for me, it's protecting individuals, protecting their freedoms, and protecting their property.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
And
sounds
this
okay.
law is quite interesting because some laws say you can't say something, but this law is saying you have to say something. Like it's different. Like it's weird like that. It's saying you have to say this. Like, okay, yeah, you have laws where it's like, oh, you can't say the N-word, whatever. But this is different. It's like, no, you have to say this, and I think that's it's a different precedent in my opinion.
I mean, it won't
It's
take.
unconstitutional, isn't it?
Yeah, laws shouldn't.
Because it's removing agency. Removing
If you think
personal
about it,
individual
though,
agency.
if you want to
I
take a
think it would
positive
be
spin on this,
unconstitutional. It would
could
be
take the piss
unconstitutional
of
if it was in America, but it isn't.
Yeah. it's
Yeah.
kind
I
of-
think it's also.
Hey, make no mistake. They're trying in America.
If I recall correctly, unconstitutional in Canada as well.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm pretty sure.
Violates Canadian charter freedoms and whatnot.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure on that though. I'm quoting another authority on that, but
Oh, I knew
think
having
you're right.
MC in the chat would be useful.
Well, it seems that the Canadian Human Rights Act is more precedent over the Canadian Charters freedom thing. Like, so,
it shouldn't be.
whatever the fuck.
I think
I
you're
think
chasing
that,
it.
MC in the live chat makes I think, pretty much pins it down pretty well in general. Laws protect both individuals and society in Western societies.
Yeah, and it's about getting that balance between what protects society.
Hang on. So, what do you mean by society as distinct from individuals?
Well, society is made up of individuals,
right.
so it's like the
It depends
difference
on the
between a
nature of the
muscle.
crime in question.
It's like a body, you know.
yeah. I would
All
say
the
that the
individual
law
parts that make it
should.
up.
I should say that the law should protect individuals. I'm not saying that no action should be taken that will benefit society, but it should only do so if that will in turn benefit individuals.
Right,
So
Should
Yes.
never
I'm
benefit
actually-
the- yeah.
When
saying
people
and
list-
society is kind of redundant.
when people articulate both
Yes, it is.
terminologies there, right, society and individuals, it implies that they're sort of distinct groups.
Things.
But I don't understand what society would be absent the consideration of the individuals contained therein.
That's
Well, I
lefty
think-
talk. Let's
I think
be
there is a
honest.
difference. I think there is like important.
Well, no, I'd say what MC's saying is lefty talk.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I wouldn't.
All right, yeah.
Because he's got the core of the matter right there.
Yeah,
It's his introduction of the word societies that everyone seems to be having a issue with.
yeah, but the core.
But
yeah.
I've always
let's
put
not
forth the
get too
idea.
caught up on semantics,
You know,
though.
Yeah, it's getting
But I've
rather
always-
pedantic.
In
I
terms
have
of
always put forth the idea that that the best way to ensure the rights of any little group or any demographic is to ensure the rights of all individuals.
right.
Yeah.
Everything else is a consequence of that. Everything else becomes protected because the individual is protected.
Right, but that's sort of my point, though, with respect to the societies aspect. It's either redundant, which is fine, right? I mean, that's nitpicky, but I have seen the terminology used sort of in a very collectivist fashion, usually by people
Yes,
who
it
are
is.
either very left-leaning or very authoritarian. And that concerns me a lot, to be honest.
It gets,
Well, that's
it gets
I
into
can tell you
groups,
from
and
my
groups lead to classes, don't they?
Right.
Because
Yes.
because you start defining it as those with power and those without power.
Well, yeah, that's
or
that's
those
exactly
that
my
are
point.
underprivileged and those with privilege. You know,
Well, like a lot
That's
of
how they like to
leftists
define
consider
things.
like society is bad and like cultural Marxism and like that kind of shit they want to introduce, where like by being white you have like an inherent class guilt or whatever. But no, I mean I think society it can be used in a malicious way. It's like, oh, we have to do this to protect the greater good of society. Where we can't let the
No,
gays
when-
marry
those
because
evil words there.
society. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what
But yeah,
I mean.
when you're talking about the greater good, if you're talking about the greater good and not working to protect the individual, then you are operating in bad faith.
well, I just want to
Evil.
protect the white race as a greater good.
You
Right.
start getting
1488.
Yeah.
communism and Nazism.
I don't really believe in race as such.
What do you mean you
Wow,
don't think
so
it
racist
exists?
construct.
I would say there are different ethnicities, but I wouldn't say there are different
Well,
races.
there are
That's-
three
Can you
Just
distinct.
distinguish between those two concepts?
What?
Yeah,
People refer to
ethnicities
race-
and identity.
What's the difference between an ethnicity and a race, and how do you determine that only one of them exists?
I don't know.
Well, I think like an ethnicity seems to be more entwined with like your nationality. But
It's more entwined with like what countries you're from,
Yeah.
what regions, because those have effects
So
on
are
you
races.
on a
Like
biological level.
genetically, if you're talking about like ethnic origin in terms of like the geographic heritage of your family line. But
Yeah.
I mean, just because you move countries, your ethnicity isn't changed.
Yeah, because well, I mean, eventually it will. If you're there for long enough, you have kids there, you will start to see some
Subsequent
changes.
generations will, assimilate, but assuming you interbreed, right? Like, as long as the generations are mixing with the population.
Mixed races.
But no,
You're,
I can't think of any better
We got a mud
terminology.
shark in here.
I can't think of any better terminology.
He wants to infect the genetic pool of the white race. God.
But I mean, it's
Sure,
if
you're quite right.
so let's say there's an ethnic group A from a country called Bloop, and they move to Gazorpazor, okay?
I fucking hate
If
loops.
This
people
Rick
with
and Morty
Bloop
references.
only reproduce with people with Bloop, or people with Bloop, then they won't actually assimilate into the ethnic group of Gazorpazor, right?
Well, what happens if the people of Bloop have been genocided? You fucking bigot.
Well, I don't know.
In Auschwitz.
As far as I can tell from what you were saying, though, Eleanor, the difference you seem to have there is an ethnicity is a specific country, whereas a race would be of a more broad region. Like white people would be from Europe, black people from Africa, Asians would be from
I wouldn't
Asia.
consider them all races. Like for me, there's the human race.
Okay, but in that case, you're
Well,
saying
yeah,
race
but
means species.
phonetically-
That's kind of just semantics, isn't it?
Yeah,
I
I
have
mean,
heard where
Well,
Or
what
at the
is your
genetic
word
level,
for a
humans
more
can
broad?
I would
what's
just say
the word for the
ethnicity
more-
there for
Okay,
broader as well.
So ethnically European is what you'd say instead of white.
You can call yourself white as well, ethnically white, if you want to.
Okay, well then it sounds like you've just moved terms around and haven't actually changed anything.
I think it always comes
That's all
down to
race
like
describes, right? It's
I
just
mean, all
your-
of this is just semantics and like what you consider.
But the concepts described by both terms are fundamentally alike. Right? Race and ethnic group are generally the same.
I think it always comes down to like we must secure the existence of our people and the future for our white children. That's kind of where
There we
we
go.
Yeah.
Arguably,
Let's see, my
ethnicity is
understanding
a
is that at
wider
the
term.
genetic level, there are 3 races of humans. There's the Caucasoid, the Negroid, and the Mongoloid.
That is massively
Racist.
Lloyd, you right away.
Yeah, no, that's the forensic crime. That they can tell by the difference of the skulls and all
Yes,
that.
yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
They can break it. They can break it down a lot further than
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And if you read up on haplogroups, there's actually more than the number of races we usually give. There's like I think 14 human haplogroups.
You could probably
Really?
break it down pretty far, right? Like you could arguably you could probably break it down pretty close to the individual.
No,
you could.
and break
you
it down
will,
to
like,
what kind of defining characteristics or distinguishing genetic characteristics that you want to take into consideration when you separate things into groups, right?
yeah, you have to like look at like at a certain region and see like what common characteristics are within them, and then like
Right.
you kind of start seeing huge differences.
Are they
even if they're within
lazy?
the same
Do they
region.
like watermelon? Do they like chicken? You know,
Do they have a low
Yeah,
IQ?
good.
But
Man,
you
look at
could, you
for
could group it
individual
down.
What
variables.
size
so
dick do
far.
they have? Are they good
You
at
could group it down to any
basketball?
level.
Right.
I actually, I
Can
would
they
break it
jump?
down.
level. But when I
I
say
major
like there's about
breakdowns, like, we
14,
could
it's
reproduce
like
this.
if you plot all of the genetic differences, it clusters around 14 different spots. I believe it's 14. I might be getting the wrong number. It's around that number.
I think it's
We're getting all
1488.
race realists in here.
I think
Yeah.
it's 1488 actually.
Yeah, 1488.
All right. Oh wow, maybe that's why I thought it was 14.
Can we go back to laws? Let's go back to
Okay,
laws.
implementing
An
it.
interesting point about C16 is that it kind of brings some of the European constitution over here, at least in regards to like France and Germany, because they have both. You shall not do any harm to individuals, like actually in their constitution. And I kind of feel that this big piece of broad legislation that inhibits your speech, you know, that's kind of like a similarity between the two, because like in Germany, you can't, there's like offense laws and you can't, you can't wave a Nazi flag, you can't do a whole bunch of things. France has very similar things.
I think it's worse though, because it's saying like you have to say something rather than you can't. Like I think it
But
makes
it's
it.
much worse. Yeah, compelled speech is much worse than.
Yeah, like it's like harassment is defined as verbal behavior that offends or humiliates you. Like so broad, and that makes it kind of scary. Like I mean, that could be fucking anything.
I think this is like further proof, though, that they actually consider words violent at this time, where they think that you can restrict words because words are violence.
Yeah, like
When they
it's-
see more and more laws like
Talking
this,
about social justice advocates.
harassment occurs when someone
This
makes
is just an
unwelcome
attempt to
remarks.
legitimize that idea.
when I was like talking in my video, I'm talking about them, protecting ideas and not just individuals. So it's like they can't separate objective from subjective, ideas from like physical. Like
Yeah.
they,
The kind of like
it's
the,
like they have mental issues. Like they can't.
I think what it all
They
this
don't have
Like
gender
to
shit
borderline
is like-
personality
reality.
disorder, for example.
I think this gender shit is pretty similar to the thing with the other kin. It's where like they just hate themselves so much they want to actually distance themselves from their old personality. I'm going there, guys. Fuck it. Let's do some, fucking armchair psychology on gender fluid. Yes.
Well, it
Well,
was
I could
actually
take it.
interesting because I was in a Twitter discussion earlier with this guy who was claiming that like trans people seem to be more narcissistic, which I actually argued against that case because a narcissist wouldn't think there's anything wrong with them to change. These people have gender dysphoria, which would be a mental illness, to
Yeah.
be so uncomfortable with your current gender identity that you feel the need to kind of change yourself.
Mhm.
Right. So
Or be in there with like anxieties and things like that.
yeah, but as with pretty much everything in social justice, there's perhaps a really annoying thing that a lot of people aren't really aware of. When it comes to transgenderism, the language has sort of been co-opted and changed around. So normies, right, or us, right, people in the skeptic rationale community.
I'm not in that community. Fuck off.
Whatever you want to call it. The people who are like anti,
Everyone in it.
when they talk about transgenderism, the typical sort of association is with gender dysphoria, right? But the thing is that SJWs have sort of co-opted the language, and when they use the terminology, it doesn't actually refer to gender dysphoria. I got in an argument a little while ago with somebody about how all the semantics work and what they actually apply to. So when you say transgenderism, the problem is that a lot of times you're speaking like a different language. Because
That's
when
'cause
they
they're
talk about
making-
transgenderism, a lot
they're
of the
making
times what
it
they're
up.
referring to is not dysphoria, but like bucking gender norms. Right? They're talking about like the social construct of gender,
Gender roles.
right? Like gender roles, right? Like
Yeah, but like, I mean, I don't think they grasp that like gender roles are like inherently linked to biology. Like,
Yeah.
not all of them
Like,
are.
but, like,
they
the core of
relate
them.
to biology, but they're not determined by.
if you can like look at what kind of the common gender roles are for each sort of like gender, and you can basically extract like what are the core elements of each gender role. Like,
Well, there are elements that are like there are parts that are sort of in favor of the biology, like in terms of like a good example. This might be like homekeeping being more commonly associated to women, right? That could relate a lot to the sort of reproductive habits of men and women, and just sort of how we've built our civilizations around that. Right, like when women get pregnant.
There's nature and nurture. There's always
Yeah.
both.
Exactly. There's
to
two factors, but the
everything.
thing is, they're sort of talking about arguably more arbitrary things, right? Like
yeah,
makeup or dresses and
Yeah.
things like that. That's why you get a lot of these people who sort of identify and they sort of present themselves in a way that's sort of androgynous, like
Mm.
sexually ambiguous, right?
yeah,
Like butch women, basically, or feminine men.
Mm. yeah. I really like the new style of feminine stubble and feminine Adam's apples. They're really
I'm not convinced that JW co-opted anything. I think that their definition makes more sense. So if someone had gender dysphoria and they didn't have any, but like, so let's say I have all of the symptoms of gender dysphoria except the one where I want to transition. Right? Any brain scan or anything you can do to determine whether this person has gender dysphoria, I come out as yes, he does. But then I'm fine being a dude. Would I be trans? Because I'd say no. That seems like that seems to fit the language a lot better, doesn't it?
It's an emotional and psychological state, though, so it can't kind of even be classified as gender dysphoria if you're not feeling the emotional.
Yeah, dysphoria is where every part of your brain says that that every action that you take is potentially wrong. It feels wrong for your body. It feels wrong for what you're going through. It's like an actual like physical pain. So or like response or an emotional pain as well. So I don't know if that really works because there's something in C16 too that bothers me with that it erases all of the biological protections that we have already set up, right? That protect trans people, but because if they're talking about making everything more fluidly defined, then technically, if they are not, then if someone is subjecting someone to, say, conversion therapy or something like that, then technically they're not doing anything really wrong. Right? Because if it's fluid, then there is no harm that you're actually doing to that person, forcing them into one gender role or another, or say to a sexuality or to another.
Well, like, it's interesting. They have sex as like one of the grounds of discrimination, and then they have gender identity and expression. So they make that differentiation between the two, which is kind of like interesting. I would have kind of known that. I would have got rid of it.
Well, what's strange too is I think what bugs me in relation to law is, so if we're considering it through this lens of it being just like strictly a social construct and not sort of a biological condition that the person has, then really what you're doing is just saying you're not allowed to discriminate against people because of certain ideas they hold. And that, to me, unless that's applied uniformly across the board, that basically privileges this idea above all others. Because, I mean, you would never see a situation where an employer refuses to hire somebody who's like openly Nazi or something, right? Who's openly Natsoc, right? And then a bunch of people in the Human Rights Commission being all, oh, you can't discriminate them because of this belief that they have, right? Almost no one would ever defend that. And yet, in this context, if you say, well, I believe X, Y, Z about, the social construct of gender, then you're not allowed to discriminate on that basis. That strikes me as faulty, because that's fundamentally a choice in the same vein as anything else, right?
Okay, can I stop before you go on and welcome Siggy and Loki into the chat?
Yes.
Their channel is Silurius, which is in the description below, so check that out.
I've already been chatting up your chat section for a while. I feel like I already know most of the people here and most of the people there. So also, hi guys.
Hey, look.
Yo, what up?
I feel like there's a difference between like kind of an ideology or an idea, and then just like your core identity, if that makes sense. There is like a bit of a difference between like just having that ideology, and then you have that core parts of you that make up your identity in that respect. So I think it's kind of like they don't really think of it as like some kind of abstract idea like ideologies tend to be. Like, no, this is a thing. Like, this is real. This isn't something out in the air. This is based
are
in
you talking
fact.
about their perception, or are you arguing from that basis? Because I could just say that, well, my love of Minecraft is an identity. Right?
You don't think there's Minecraft porn out there for you?
Oh, there is, Loki. You don't need to
the
tell
fact
me.
that I play video games and really enjoy them, gamer is now a formal identity. It's part of my
really
being.
is.
And if
Yeah.
on that basis, then that's basic, right? Like,
Mycroft in the chat was asking when did it become a class? Like autism isn't a class of people.
It's
It
It
should
should
be.
When
be.
it became
It's
hijacked
class.
by a left wing.
Like,
Seriously,
Okay, hold on.
State.
As
autism.
somebody
Master-
who's guys, as somebody
Autistic
who
master race.
specifically tries to stay away
Asperger's
from
master race.
any kind of labels. Me personally, I specifically try to stay away from any kind of labels and not try to play the identity politics game. I think this entire thing is their way of trying to get everyone to play their stupid autistic identity politics game. Because again, listening to Jordan Peterson earlier today, he talks about how there's people who actually have the genetic condition or the mental condition or whatever it is. Some people are born one way. Some people try to transition and identify as that way, and some people are just pretending. Like
It's all
there's no
about the
such-
trend.
I'm not sure what
Well,
you mean
no.
by just pretending.
Well, I don't think they're pretending.
What is-
What I
what
think
is it-
happens
The,
is
no, the
Hashtag
people who
gender.
identify as dragons, like whether they know, how are they not pretending? How if you're a dragon kid,
What
how
do
are
you
you
not
not
pretending?
living
We
in
can touch on
a make
that.
believe land?
It's
No, because
true.
they
They
may.
do identify as dragons,
We
Yeah.
can touch on that if you
but
would
it's
like.
not false.
Okay, but no. The point is that they identify as a dragon for let's say this week.
Hang
Next
on,
week
let's
they'll
say-
identify as a toaster.
People do
Well,
the
that's
exact same
annoying
thing
and
with
stupid,
gender,
but
right?
it's still not false.
Right, so hang on. So let's sort of unpack this a little bit. So first and foremost is the fact that, so do you guys believe in a biological condition of gender dysphoria?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Why?
Sure.
Because it's in the DSM. I mean, it's a medical condition.
But what is
There
it?
is-
What is it?
So argument from authority.
it's a mental disorder.
the
So it's in
same
the
way that
DSM.
any
What
other
is it?
disorder works in the
What
DSM.
mechanisms
People
are involved that sort of
certain
manifest
behaviors.
this condition?
It's symptomology. It's everything in the DSM is based on symptomology. So if people carry these kinds of characteristics and symptoms and behaviors, they would be diagnosed with that disorder. Except that now they're kind of trying to change the meaning of mental illness in a way too, and now you suffer from depression, you don't have depression, or you suffer from schizophrenia, kind of like the same way you can be cured of, I don't know, an illness. They want to make mental illness that same way, which is a whole different conversation.
But
the
with
thing
mental
is-
illness, there's no immune system response.
well, actually, the very first thing that you need to do when you want to diagnose a mental illness is to actually make sure that there is no biological reasons that could be causing the behavioral or the mental illness in itself. And you could be surprised, like people could, not be getting something in their diet, and that could be a reason that they have a certain kind of behavioral characteristic.
It could do with hormones as well,
So,
couldn't it?
but this
Yeah.
is,
Or levels of
Like
testosterone or something,
Yeah,
making
depression
you more
chemicals are like
feminine
chemical imbalance.
and making you
depth
feel
on
like
this,
you're more
but
of a
Yeah.
I feel like we're sort of
But that's
drifting
sidetracking.
away
We've
from
gone
the-
we've gone pretty far away from law.
Yeah.
Well, no, we're
going
talking
back-
about the C16 law, so I think all this is fairly.
Well,
Well,
let's,
If
we're trying to
we
focus
have
on
that
that, but-
C16 thing,
I feel
I'd
like
like to know to what extent you could abuse that. Could I say that my pronoun is Your Majesty, right? Like, what can I do?
Well, that's
Well,
the
it-
thing, right?
yeah.
It depends because, like, this is what I was trying to emphasize here, right? Because if you're talking about, it depends what context and what scope that you're looking at. If you're saying that it's strictly a social construct, that it's just completely there's nothing that you can sort of examine for on a biological basis, right? Empirical, not chosen, right? Because I think that's sort of the important characteristic. If you're going to have anti-discrimination laws, it should be focused on things that you have no control over, right? Your
So-
gender expression, you do.
Well, no, that's the whole point. Some people say they
Difference
don't.
between-
But if they don't, right? If they don't, if it's because of some sort of condition that they have, whatever that may constitute.
Okay, no, but this is the exact same problem.
Sadie
This
is
the-
actually
the
a
fundamental
psychologist,
problem.
so
Well, not
she's getting
Well,
there. She's not there yet. But that's
studying that.
hold on. This is the fundamental underline of everything they do in their philosophy: is that everything is a social construct and everything is enacted upon you. So every condition you've undergone, like if you've been watching Sonic the Hedgehog from the age of fucking 3, and they started sexualizing animated characters from an early age, so you started identifying your sexuality through the characters you watch on TV, and therefore you become a furry. That is something that happened to you. That is something you had no control over. You just watched TV at a young age, and now you identify as a furry, and you can only get off to people in fursuits. That's something done to you. Could you change it? Absolutely. There's lots of behavioral therapies out there that could help you undergo, like, completely change that about yourself.
So I want to quickly check something there in that case, because so I assume what Bones was saying was something you can't change is something genetic, and you are now bringing in like something you can't change because you went through these experiences and now you're this way. So wait, experience and
I'm saying
genes
that's their argument.
are things that you but experience and genes things are not in the purview of things you can control. What other actions do humans ever take that aren't anything to do with the genes and nothing to do with their experiences?
Right.
What else determines human actions?
Those are the only things, except if you
Right.
believe in a collective consciousness and all that kind of crap.
Yeah, right. Like, so at this point, nothing is in human control. So what does that distinction mean?
Is there free will?
Well,
Tune in
there
next
is no free
week.
will. Not at all.
God.
I will do a free will live stream with you.
Now someone's going to talk about the fucking Matrix.
The thing
Oh,
that I
guys.
want-
Absolutely. We all live in a computer simulation.
Right.
the thing that I just want-
Gender
the thing that-
identity.
Hang on. So,
C16 is the blue pill.
One of the things that so did you guys actually watch Peterson go up against Senate? Because I just finished watching that, and so one of the things, and I've heard him say this before in another one of his talks, is that this whole concept of identity isn't just something that you control, it's something that you negotiate with other people. Like, for example, right now, so Potato said that I'm a psychologist. Like, I can't identify as a psychologist yet. I haven't gone through the actual training yet. So that's not something that I can just decide that I am. You have to, negotiate that with the world. You have to get accreditation, and it has to mean something. So if you just want to and
this seems like language tomfoolery, to be honest. What does identity mean?
It's really tricky, doesn't it?
Oh
Yeah,
god.
what does because I want things to be clear. Can we just define identity so we know what that statement means?
Well, it depends on how you're
I don't know if
talking
there's a
about
good
it.
definition of
Well, if
identity.
it depends on how you're talking about it, then that statement's kind of meaningless.
Okay,
So what does he
fine.
mean in that scenario by identity?
Fine. You can talk to most people in jail who will not identify themselves as criminals. Yeah, you see how that has to be negotiated with society? They don't
That's not a
identify themselves as
definition.
criminals, but because it kind of goes to the definition. We've identified them and defined them as criminals because they broke the law. They may not see themselves as criminals, but that's a non-negotiable
They
identity.
also may not have broke the law, right?
So there are some. But
Defying-
if they've
Okay,
been
stop. Let's assume they broke the law. Let's not get too
Well, no, that's
Wait,
an unfair
wait,
assumption.
swear to
There are
God.
people in
Let's,
prison who are not. So what you have to consider then is what constitutes a criminal. Is it somebody who's found guilty in a court of law, or is it somebody who violated the law?
Whoa. Let's not go
Well,
too far into
actually-
semantics. Oh my
yeah,
god, we'll be
just,
here all
Those are
day.
relevant
I
considerations.
kind of need the semantics,
There
honestly,
is a
because
distinction.
We don't need that level of semantics.
No,
Yeah,
but
so we really
this
do.
entire bill is nothing but
Criminal,
semantics.
what are you
God.
actually
Yeah.
calling
everyone's
that?
talking-
There's a
the
difference
fundamental
between
issue
committing
that we're
crime and
having
breaking a
is
law.
a semantic one.
Let's
Right?
just let
Is it-
Wikipedia decide for
If
us.
I'm-
Okay?
if I might be so bold as to suggest something that not only is identity a conversation, it is a biological impetus that we have. It is the nurturing that surrounds us, and it is our reaction to society, and is a reaction to our biological impetus and the biological impetus of those around us. So that's, I think that's like a fairly good way to define it, I think, because like I said, there's back and forth, because sometimes things happen and then we change, and sometimes we invoke our change upon society as well. So
Identity can
that's
change.
part of
then.
identity.
I think an identity is what the person in question thinks you are. Your identity is what someone thinks you are, or what you think you are. Depends. right? It's a
Well,
subjective
that's what
thing.
someone thinks you are, though, and you have to have
Yeah, it
actions
is.
and behaviors that you can't just say you're a soldier. You have to enlist in the army. Like you can't identify.
Well,
There are
You can.
rules.
No, you absolutely
Be a
can say
cultural
that.
soldier.
That's more
What do you
part
mean you
of
can't
that
say that?
biological
Hold
Well,
on.
you can
the
say
core
that, but it doesn't mean anything, right? Like
Well-
you have to negotiate these identities with other people in the world. You can't
No,
just
no,
decide
you don't.
you are
You don't have to
something.
Okay, so for the identity to have meaning,
Okay,
you have
hang
to
on,
negotiate it.
identity, whether you're referring to a person or thing, right, is a set of characteristics. Whether or not
Okay,
Definition.
hold on.
depends
Hold on.
on
If
whether or
I
not
say,
those characteristics are in
guys,
in
if I
effect.
say I'm black, am I black? Is that
We
now
don't
my
know,
identity that I'm
like,
black?
Ask
We don't
Breaking
know.
Ball.
We don't know
If
anymore.
by the normal definition of black, no.
Okay, so therefore there you go. That was negotiated with the community, with the world, with society, and
No.
society said no, you're not
Community
white.
doesn't
Agreed.
No,
It's agreed upon
Stop.
definition.
No, I really want to get back to what he just said. I've really got to. So he said
God.
that it's negotiated with the community and with the world, and we said no, and therefore you're not. No, you wouldn't have been even
If we said yes, it wouldn't
Even
matter.
if we did said yes, you would still not be. So it's nothing to do with negotiating with the community.
That's the whole
It's
point of
whether
this
you-
bill.
it's
That's the whole
whether-
point of this bill.
it's-
This bill says that I should be able to say whatever the hell I want and identifies to whatever the hell I want, and you guys better fucking respect it, or you're going to jail.
Yeah, but no, hold up. Okay. That's cool. But I'm responding to the idea that it's something negotiated with the community, which is false, given the example that you just gave us. Right? It's not something negotiated with the community. It's a set of characteristics, and whether or not you fall into them. Black includes
Okay, but those
basically,
definitions are
African lineage.
made up by the community that we agree upon the definitions.
Yeah.
We might.
But you don't, but you do not need somebody else to tell you you're black to be able to identify as black. We just have
Right,
to have
because
that definition written and agreed upon beforehand.
Because it's the characteristics, right? That's the
Okay,
thing.
okay.
Whether or not
Okay,
those
can I make my example a little bit more outlandish, and then therefore easier to argue? Because black, fine. There's way too many predefined notions of what it means to be black for us to easily say, well, since society already agreed what it means to be black hundreds of years ago, now I can't identify as black because that's grandfathering it in. So what if I just straight up wanted to identify as a hobbit goblin?
Okay. Well,
Yeah, you don't
can
fit the
identify
definition.
as that,
That's what you're
and then
describing.
okay. So in that case, it is true that you identify as that, unless you're lying. But it is not true that you are a hobbit goblin by any normal definition of that word.
Yeah, so that's not his
You have
identity.
hairy feet.
Okay,
You're
what if
just
under my
identifying as
definition
something
of hobbit
not being your
goblin, I
actual
am?
identity.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, like the Dragonkin people say that I have a dragon soul within me, and therefore I'm fucking dragonborn, and therefore I am a dragon trapped in the human
But
body.
okay, but hang on. So likening that to
Then you have to
transgenderism-
establish the existence of
so-
the soul.
Wait. Hang on. So likening that to transgenderism, a trans woman may identify as a woman, but will never be a woman.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there'll always be a trans
Yes.
woman. It's not the same as a woman.
Yeah,
I think it
most of them
comes
would
down
do
to
that.
like what you identify as and what your identity actually is, which like if that makes sense.
Well,
Yeah, like can
That's
you
just the
switch
difference between
nationality?
what
Like,
you
can I
think-
identify as German or Swedish? Like,
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
but
Because
that doesn't
what are
make it
borders?
true.
Borders are also just social
Okay, so-
constructs.
But
when
that
we
doesn't
say
make it true.
I identify, when we say I identify as, is that synonymous with saying I think I am?
No,
No.
not to me. But again, I'm saying. I don't know.
What's
I'm
the
saying.
difference? Wait, no. So if I say I identify as a toaster, does that
Okay.
mean the same thing as I think I am a toaster?
And so
I
that
say
you-
I think I'm going to kill myself. I don't identify as I'm going to kill myself.
Well, then the question becomes, can you toast bread?
Just like
That is
So no one
the
has a- does anyone have
fundamental
a serious
nature of
answer to that?
toasters.
You might be a
Okay.
broken toaster. Well, you just assume that all toasters
I
are
think in
working
practice,
properly.
no.
That is very
Okay.
bigoted of you.
Okay.
No,
Human
no,
Rights Commission.
Hold on. As a sane, logical
Can I
person,
assume your
Yeah.
appliance?
I'm trying to
appliance.
think of an example of somebody identifying as a thing where they don't actually think that that thing has a significant part of their. Because I mean, look, if somebody like, because I don't know, because I mean, you get trans
let's
people
bring
who
it back,
identify as the
though.
opposite sex.
Yeah,
But when
let's bring
trans
it
will
back
not
to
say that they are the opposite sex. They basically want to be regarded as such.
Yeah.
No,
Right.
a lot of them
Right.
will say, "I was born a woman. I am a woman. I was always a woman, but the doctor misgendered me." That's
Yeah, the Human
I'm not talking about.
Rights
Yes,
Human
there
Rights
are
Commission
some people who will say that,
identity as
but I'm
but
looking.
they're
for
wrong.
its internal and individual experience of gender. It is their sense of being a woman, a man, both, neither, or anywhere along this gender spectrum. A person's gender identity may be the same or different from their birth assigned sex. Gender identity is fundamentally different from a person's sexual orientation. That's what is defined as gender identity under the entire Human Rights Commission.
Here's where it all falls apart. If you don't believe in like biological sex and in gender, then you believe that everything's on a spectrum, and therefore you can be whatever the hell you want to be. So why bother identifying as anything to begin with?
Okay, no, that's
what I want to know.
wrong.
You can't be born. No, you can't be born biologically male. Say no. I feel like the doctor was wrong. I am actually a woman.
They're saying
like,
gender is a social
hold on.
construct, and then they turn around and say gender is very important. You have to respect the gender pronouns, even though apparently it's just a social construct.
Yeah,
There
there's
is
no bill,
gender
no
is-
contradictory.
Respect
There's
is not given. Respect is earned.
Yeah.
Well, I think we could all
Hang
agree
on,
upon
Like
that.
hang on.
disrespect is the same for disrespect. Disrespect is also earned. You come at me with a stupid idea that I can't rationally respect. Of course I'm going to develop disrespect for you.
Well, maybe earning
But, hold on.
disrespect. Well, I suppose you
But
could
we've
frame
all
it as
been
that way.
raised with zero tolerance. So once you have no respect for somebody, you are now the enemy, and therefore you are a bigot, and you deserve to be jailed and or fined and or sent to the education
it's the
camp.
collectivist mindset again, us versus them,
Oh, yeah.
constantly. Instead of regarding everyone as an individual. So I mean, you find one area that someone disagrees with you on, and they're the enemy, and then suddenly you can't respect them at all, even in regards to things that you can respect them on. You might find a communist who has a field of study that they're very well educated on, and you should be able to respect that person on that. But you just disregard everything they say now because they identify as a communist.
So I was
No, I
born
listen to their
a
ideas.
communist. Does that make me a communist?
No.
Well, if you were born a Jew, are you always a Jew?
You can't be born a
According to the
communist.
Nazi,
Why
Yeah,
can't I be
yeah.
born a communist? I was born
You
to
can't be born a
communist parents in a communist society.
You can
Hang on.
be born into communism.
Because the term
Yeah.
communist, it identifies a person who espouses like political advocacy for communism. And as an infant, you don't have that. So you're not a communist.
Well, as an infant, I've been living my first 9 years of my life completely in socialism. How can I be against it? People are sitting around
It's
and
not about
providing
whether or
everything
not
for
you
me.
live under socialism. It's whether or not you advocate it. And as an infant, you don't have the cognitive ability to formulate those kind of opinions.
Right.
can't be
You
born
could
a
live in
communist.
Soviet Russia,
Okay,
but
okay,
you could
so-
nonetheless be a right-wing Bonapartist.
But he hit on something very important. I don't have the cognitive ability to distinguish the difference between one thing and another, and therefore I can't consent to it. And that's what half of this issue is an issue for me. Most of these people don't know what the fuck they're saying. Regardless of whether they think they know what they're saying, they don't. Why is there 72 goddamn different genders? Why is there a gender spectrum?
So,
Like,
okay,
literally-
hang on. So this comes down to the linguistic issues again, right? So earlier you mentioned how they don't believe in biological sex. That's not entirely true, right? You can have biological sex and argue for a gender spectrum because you're differentiating
Right.
between your biological sex, right? Your
No,
chromosomal
no,
sex,
No.
and the social regard of how people.
But this is the other issue I have with them continuously conflating one word with another. There's the gender,
those are
literally.
different words. Completely
Huh?
different things, right? Those are completely different concepts.
Okay, but when they say I
Well,
don't, I
nowadays
believe
they
gender is on a
mix them.
spectrum. Is it on a
Right.
spectrum or is gender fucking male or
Yes.
female? Period. Unless you're
Well,
born.
No,
with-
gender,
Right, so if
gender
you're-
isn't
Ask Bill Nye.
on a spectrum so much. There's certainly not more than two genders. Okay, because
Okay, hang on. So wait, because
something to define.
it depends entirely on what you're talking about, right? So if you're talking
Okay,
about,
but I'm going to get there, Buns. So
hang on.
when you've got so you've got a biological sex, right, and you're going to differentiate gender. So there's the biological sex is like your chromosomes, based on basically the part you play in reproduction. Do you have the small gametes or the big gametes? And then you've got your gender. What is the common characteristics and social roles played out by the
Okay, but
with the
that's no
small
longer
gametes
gender.
and
Those are
the
gender
people
roles.
with the large gametes. And at that
Or-
point, you can only have two. Because if boys
Or-
have blue and girls have pink, and then we start giving green to some girls and some boys, we haven't created a new gender. We're just having
Right,
some
no.
behavior or something, some behavior that we're not putting into the gender boxes.
No,
Gender is
because-
the
See, this is the thing. Gender does not exist on a spectrum, but fetishes certainly do.
Hang on, there's two things to
Yeah,
take
but
into
I want
consideration
to
here.
bunch response.
So you could be talking about, for example, behavioral traits commonly associated with either sex, right? Aggression, nurturing behavior, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can argue that gender, as an identity, is something along the lines of the aggregate total of those behaviors, right? And at that point, you can appear anywhere between the two extremes, right? You can become completely masculine, you could be completely feminine, or you could be somewhere between the two. And that constitutes a spectrum, right? So there's lots of different ways to talk about it. And the thing is, one of the things that's really irritating about that is language isn't always clear what concepts are actually being discussed.
But it's also
Right.
the fact
The
that
only
they
thing
mix
that I have an
things,
issue
right? Like
with-
sorry, I'm going to interrupt you, but it's also because they are exchanging these words, just like now being racist is being institutionally racist, and now gender and sex are being mixed up, so you don't really know which one they're even referring to anymore. So now
Right.
because you are in an institutionally racist environment, you are now a racist person if you benefit from that in any way. So like they're changing the definitions of words, and this is why even in the bill itself, it's self-contradictory. Like at some points it's saying one thing, and then another point it's saying another thing. And Peterson was arguing out, and even one of the Senate guys was saying this discussion of what gender means and what sex means, it's not resolved yet for laws to be put in place about
Right.
how we talk about it, because we figure there's still discussion to be had.
I agree. Absolutely.
Well, the other thing is you can argue for a gender spectrum given the definitions you outlined there, Bones, and that's fine, right? That is differentiating gender and sex, and it does seem to me that what you're calling gender is what we used to call gender roles, but
Yeah.
that's
Or
beside
gender
the point.
expression.
But nonetheless, you can totally define words like that because you can define words however you want.
Hmm.
The thing is, that doesn't give you any reason to say, well, there are like 72 genders.
But if you actually look at the 72 genders, they're just synonyms for different words. So they literally are, and even when you say I can go by queer eye, queer this, blah blah blah, like they even say the different ways you can. They're just coming up with more and more words for it.
Well, hell,
And-
when they say that they're non-binary, they're basically admitting that there's a binary.
So there's like agender and genderless are the same
I like
thing.
that.
Gender bender, gender queer, non-binary. Like how is agender and non-binary different? How is bigender and androgen? Like they're just endless amounts of words to describe the same thing.
That's
See, our problem is that there are tons of characteristics associated with people's biological sex that need not to be there at all. You know, a man can be feminine and a woman can be masculine. We know that.
Okay.
You don't need to change your gender or identify as something different because it really
Right.
doesn't matter.
Well, the issue that I can see.
We're just trying to be
what it comes
special
down
and
to is
different.
it's what Doc describes, right? Dr. Random Cam talks about, right? It's AIDS piggery. It's just a bunch of intentionally obfuscating the language so that the conversation simply can't happen, right? Like what was described earlier there with respect to agender and non-gender and all this other stuff. They're trying to inject multiple words that all describe fundamentally distinct concepts, but trying to also put them under the same umbrella so that they gain more prominence and whatnot, even if that means that they're less clear in terms of what the ideas the words are meant to convey, right? Like it's intentionally confusing things for political purposes.
It really is. Like gender fluid, gender non-conforming, gender questioning, gender variant, gender queer. How are
Are those different things, or is that one thing?
They're all different things.
We don't know.
I mean, you could probably do tests of each of those people and test their levels of different hormones and things like that. And then you'd be able to put them into these categories. You probably see that people who identify as agender share similar levels of different hormones.
No, you wouldn't, because look, let's put it this way, right? So you have white and black, okay? White and black are relatively typically white and
It's a
black
spectrum.
refers to, like, when you're talking about ethnic origin or race, talks about melanin content, right? So you could start like trying to analyze sort of their behavioral elements or what political leanings they have and stuff like that, but it doesn't really change what those terms actually are conveying, right? What they're focusing on.
Right.
You know, the way they use language, it just seems to me like they just want to win the argument by childish means. It's someone saying, "How old am I?" and someone going, "Oh, 6," and they're going, "No, I'm 6.5."
Well, yeah. Well, if they're going to do that, and they're going to say, "Well, this is how I'm defining the language," when I say gender, I don't mean the same as biological sex. To me, these are distinct concepts. All right. Well, to me, pronouns are a thing that you use depending on someone's biological sex, not depending on their gender.
Okay,
So
two things real quick. One, have you heard about the professor that's going around telling people that he's not really telling people, he announced it to everybody that this would be perfectly, even very easily and calmly resolved if we just started to referring to each other as comrade.
That would be much worse.
Look, if
The
you want
second
to
thing is-
change pronouns and just find a very simple gender-neutral pronoun and refer to everyone in gender-neutral, I would have no problem with that. I don't give a fuck. I don't
All right,
go
so
around
comrade it
being
is,
like,
guys.
I'm a woman, I am so woman, woman,
It
woman,
doesn't matter
woman.
what
I
gender
don't
is
think
actually.
about my gender except when I want to sleep with somebody or something.
There is no neutral biological sex.
There doesn't need to be, but it doesn't matter. Pronouns are so irrelevant.
If your argument is that
Well, the male pronouns used to be gender.
attributed to biological sex, right?
I think the other issue is that even in the bill itself, they say a line about how you can just simply refer to the person as their name. And so or you could just go by they or whatever. If you can't keep track of the endless list. So what's the big deal? Just go by their name and whatever they want to call themselves. And if Paul wants to be called Paula, or if Billy wants to change his name to like David, people should. But here's the thing, and Peterson even addresses this in Senate, is that if someone doesn't want to call me by my name, if someone decides I don't want to call you Siggy, I'm going by Siggy, and I don't want to call you that, there's no law behind them that allows me to force them to do so. Like this is essentially saying it's against the law to be an asshole. Like, fine, don't be an asshole. You know what I mean? It's better to be polite and considerate of people and like by respectful. Again, I agree, like respect is something to be earned, but don't be a dick in public. That's fine. But you don't have the law behind you saying you're not allowed to be mean to people. This is saying you can't be mean to people. And now,
Well, I mean, you
At
can
what point-
harder because that's ableist now.
Presumably, this law is meant to prevent harm, but
and so, but
preventing harm, do you start to harm people?
Right.
Well,
Developmentally.
everything's harassment at that stage because
At the
you're
end of
gonna
the
have
day,
to start referring
I've got
everyone
it.
to Z.
I've got it. My pronoun is nigger.
Oh,
It's about
you're
commensurate response.
wait, Danny, where are you? Whereabouts are
New
you
Zealand.
located? Okay,
New
so
Zealand.
your people definitely have nothing to do with slavery or calling people niggers. So go ahead, self-identify as that. Why not?
No, my pronoun is nigger, which means that if you don't call me that, then you're going to get sued.
But only in Canada.
Because
So-
it's
Only in
harassment.
Canada. Yeah, exactly.
New York.
It's harassment. I can sue you for not saying nigger.
So you can harass dogs by literally fucking them in Canada, but you have to refer to people who choose to as dragging
No,
kin or
no,
whatever
no.
fucking pronouns they want.
You still can't penetrate dogs, and dogs
Right?
can't
Like-
penetrate you.
Okay,
You
okay.
just everything else is legal.
Unacceptable behavior should be met with.
Well, you can penetrate them with things that aren't your dick. Can you or not?
I think so. I'm pretty sure they just specify penetration.
Okay. Well, that's fingers too. God damn it.
Well, guys, just know if you stick your fingers down the dog's throat, that's officially rape.
Oh, okay. What if you have to force feed your dog something?
Nope, you can't force anything into anything.
But what if you have to get your dog to take a certain type of medication
Guess
for its
what?
health?
Get his consent,
Is that
gets to
rape?
sign.
How does that work?
What if you have a really hairy dog and you pet the dog and you go the wrong way and accidentally penetrate the fur?
Okay, that's too meta. I don't.
What if your dog like penetrates your mouth with his tongue, like, and you're like, ugh?
I've seen that video.
That has happened to me.
You've been assaulted. You're a victim.
Yeah, I was sitting there. I was sitting there. I was looking at my dog on the couch, and I turn my head and I open my mouth to talk, and it gets me right in the side of my mouth. Oh my god. Dogs are annoying. This is why I like cats. Cats don't assault me.
Cats
It's
are evil.
harassment.
Cats are not people.
Okay, so
But
If-
seriously,
if
when,
this-
at what point in preventing harm do we create a situation where no one is in any way offended, developed properly?
Well, it's simple, right? Like I said earlier, it's about commensurate response. If what you're doing is social harm, then the response should be social.
Yes,
they
I
are
agree.
doing social harm. They're
Not
doing
legal.
social harm to me. This is why I'm on the internet calling them
No,
morons.
what they're doing is
Yeah,
much more
exactly.
than social harm. If it was just you got a bad scolding every time you called somebody by the wrong pronoun, then sure, whatever, right? But then the appropriate response would be to just, I don't know, make some angry YouTube videos about it. But that's not the threat currently in play, right? The threat
It's
is
illegal threats.
if you do this, you'll get fined
let
and
me-
potentially imprisoned.
Well, can
Let
we
me put
make
it
a
to
law
you another
saying
way.
that it's legal to call someone literally Hitler? Because that's defamation, right? That is clear defamation. Why don't we have
Okay,
laws
not
against
necessarily.
Clearly,
Not
this entire thing-
necessarily. It goes back to what these
Legal
people never
direction.
understand, and that is context.
And I
Because
think
if Loki and I are sitting in a having a beer and just shooting the shit, and we're like old friends who take a constant ribbing to each other, and he wears his haircut funny one time, and I'm like, dude, you look like Hitler. Well, all you needed was that little mustache. And then someone overhears that. That means I can get arrested.
No, I disagree
You know, it's that
wholeheartedly.
little-
I don't think context
That's
matters.
a little good-natured ribbing
let me ask you
that
a
friends
question.
do to each other.
Let's say I sincerely call you literally Hitler, right? I say that your behavior is analogous to Hitler, and I mean it with like I'm
People
actually
literally
making
meant
a
that.
character assassination against you.
Right, with
Is that-
Trump is a
that-
perfect
Hang on,
example.
hang on. Is that egregious enough to jail me?
No,
No, not in my head anyway.
No, of course not.
no, because this is the single direction.
Right, but there is
people like us
actually
don't get a say.
examples of people using that to try and destroy someone's character. There are clear examples of that, like with the elections and with Trump,
but-
where they're
Sure.
actually trying to destroy that person's character.
Hold on. So,
So
if
wait,
somebody,
we don't have laws for that.
We
Yeah,
should.
we're
There are
introducing
definitions.
laws.
That's in a
for-
political arena, though.
Well, I'm just talking
It's
about
a
on
different-
a different.
It's a different game.
But even if it
I don't
isn't,
think,
Well, no,
I
it's
don't think
still
it
in
actually is. I think
defamation.
the law still
if I
applies.
call you,
Although
know,
that
a
being said,
retarded
there should be no-
fuckface, right?
Yeah, there should be no defamation laws.
I'm not for those laws.
Or
I'm just
whatever, I
saying
use a bunch
that
of
laws
against you.
for pronoun use are coming out before things like saying, like comparing someone to Hitler. You know.
I mean, because
Well, I don't
they
think it
use the
matters.
word
That's why-
harassment.
What was
right?
hold on? What was Bones saying?
And-
Even if I am trying to cause you social distress, the commensurate response to that is a social one, right? I'm a dick. Regard me as a dick. People won't like me. People won't want to
Yeah.
spend time with me and stuff like
Right,
that.
Yeah, that's what
That's
I'm
going to
saying.
factor
Yeah,
in.
but
Don't
these are-
imprison people
but
for being
things-
an asshole.
the way this stuff happens.
I'm not
is,
advocating that. I'm just saying that these pronoun laws are coming out before these other more extreme cases that we're seeing.
what
of
happens
character
though is you
assassination.
you often
I'm not
get
in
the
for those
uninvolved
laws, though.
third party. You often get that uninvolved third party who decides to take offense on someone's behalf, and then that's going to launch this whole
Often, all the time.
bureaucratic investigation and whatnot. Meanwhile, I'm just wearing a funny shirt in a restaurant. And Loki looks at it and says to me, what's with this shirt? What happened? Your wife come back? If he's
Sure.
giving me that good-natured ribbing, and some third party overhears it, decides to call the police based on some spurious harassment charge.
Well,
No,
I
I
think
don't-
most
yeah, I
of
would
people
not-
taking
should not be
offense to
involved.
things.
No,
are
you can't.
taking
You can't
offense
press charges
from
on behalf of another person.
yes, you can.
You can't. How?
Because you can say witnessing it triggered you. It was upsetting to you by
To you,
doing
yes.
that
No,
kind
no,
of
no, I
behavior.
can call
Identify
somebody.
as the victim, the one
That's right,
wrong
I
by
can
the
call somebody an
transaction,
idiot.
right?
They can take offense
That's a
to
very
it.
different thing
They
than
have
saying
cause
that.
because they got offended about me calling somebody an idiot because I'm
Right,
not
but that's
using the
not the
right
same.
pronoun.
That's not what I'm talking about, right? That's not the same as pressing charges on behalf of
Yeah,
another
for-
person.
No,
for-
you don't, but you
More
don't
than-
have to do
You
it
can
on
be
behalf of someone else.
representative
Hold on,
of that
hold on,
person.
I'm
hold
not
that's
saying you
on it.
have to. I'm
Hold on a
saying
second.
that.
Hold on.
What-
On. In Canada, the government can absolutely carry on charges on somebody else's behalf, regardless of who charged, and whether the person wants those charges led.
or
Not in this
nebulous
case.
action,
Not for Bill
or
C-16.
for criminal
they couldn't,
conduct.
because it's dependent on whether the
Sorry?
person is a
Not yet.
For criminal conduct, or well, because like a good example that would be murder, right?
Okay, obviously murder, they're allowed to do that. But they
Obviously.
can do it
And
over
also in the
over
second
othering
case,
threats.
murder-
they could
murder
do it
is
over,
different than
they
making
can't
fun of someone's
civil
shirt.
disputes. They can't do it for civil disputes.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying, right? Like, there's a difference between the criminal code, right, and a civil dispute, right? Like, well, harassment would be a good
But
example.
the
Could
problem is
somebody
all of
say,
these
well, this
things-
person is harassing this other person, I'm going to press charges on their behalf?
I don't think for harassment you
Like the victim of
can.
that
I
harassment
don't
saying,
think
"Oh, no, it's
Canada
not
is the
harassment,"
special.
and it's still
No, you
holding.
can't. But you can say that viewing that or viewing some of that behavior in public was harmful to you or harmful to somebody else.
Yes,
Like,
but again, we're
You
talking
can with
that's
defamation.
fundamentally
Can you have
different.
defamation?
You can't say it's harmful to someone else. You have to say it's harmful to you.
Right.
You could do
Well,
that, but that's a different case.
The police absolutely can't say it was harmful to somebody else. What you're doing is harmful to somebody else, and we can press charges for the
No.
potentiality of harming somebody else.
No, only for criminal cases, not for civil ones.
Okay, so is this a criminal case or is this a civil case? How are we looking at this?
I
Because
believe
we-
harassment
Criminal
is civil.
Probably be civil.
harassment to civil.
Yeah. I don't think you get a criminal record for being in
you can
violation
spend
of
time in
C-16.
jail and get fined, but not have a
I
criminal.
don't see how it could. Like, here's the thing: I don't see how it could be a
It
criminal
does-
aspect.
It doesn't,
Right,
but it's
They're literally talking about jail time. If they're talking about
No,
jail time and
jail
fines,
time.
Civil
I
dispute.
Well,
believe
if
you
you
get jail time
refuse
for a
to-
civil case.
If you refuse to pay the fines
Yeah,
because
that's
you
what
don't
it
agree
leads
with
to,
that
right?
law,
That's what
then
they're saying is you don't go to jail for violating the clause, right? You get in you go to jail time for contempt of court,
Yeah.
where you reject the terms of the civil court case or whatever, or the court's findings, right? Either a cease and desist or a fine.
man,
If you
I
don't pay the
hope
fine or you
Jordan
don't cease and
Peterson
desist,
goes to
then-
jail. Like, if
then
that
you-
bill does get passed, I hope Jordan Peterson goes to jail just to be like, well, fuck you guys. Like, that would just be badass.
I don't think they would do that. There would be too much of an uproar.
Well, I didn't think they would
I
try to
hope-
pass this bill, but they continue to surprise me all the time.
I hope
Good
Jordan
back.
Peterson goes to jail because then there'll be one less narrative literalist.
I doubt that either.
um,
Well, it's
Well,
not like going to jail makes him cease to exist.
Yeah.
Well, it means he's probably not going to be doing a whole lot of, speaking engagements.
his popularity will shoot up though. Like, when somebody dies,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, oh my god, yeah, this person was my favorite person ever. It's
Yeah,
like,
that's
just
true.
pretend that you're a huge fan. You're like, oh, David Bowie, he was my fucking favorite. It's like, you've never heard of David Bowie. You're like 16. Shut the fuck up. To be fair.
If someone legitimately hadn't heard of David Bowie, I don't think I'd ever talk to them again.
Well, like the younger generation, they don't listen to Bowie. Most of them don't know who they is and who he is. Like, unless they're,
Apple parents.
yeah, or something like that. They don't. Like your average 16-year-old listens to the shitty pop that they have nowadays.
yeah, but they play that
Do
shit
they?
on the
Yeah.
radio. I heard Bowie on the radio a
Yeah.
bunch of times before he died. Before he died. Now that he died, now fucking
Is it-
it's on all the time.
Is
Your
it just
audio's
me or is
gone
Loki
bad,
breaking
Loki.
up?
Yeah, Loki, you're staticking
Yeah,
out.
you're roboting.
Okay. Well,
Alright,
Mitch and
John.
Lane, I haven't heard from you guys in a while. What do you guys have to say? I think we should talk
Well-
more generally about laws again. So, Danny, you don't agree with defamation laws at all.
No, they shouldn't exist.
Okay.
Basically, Bones already outlined the simplest contention, which is they are a social. The only harm is social, so the response can only be social. Can't
Well,
be
what
legal.
if someone okay, well, what if someone lies about you, spread lies about you, and
That's
destroys your
defamation.
business?
Yeah, he's a dick. Fuck
Okay.
that guy.
I think, yeah, it depends. He's a dick.
Spread news in
If the lies manifest into some sort of like egregious
well, I
harm,
think
that's
it's a
greater.
way for accountability for bad journalism and things like that. That's something we can do them in on and make
They
sure that
already
they
have
do get
accountability.
things.
People stop reading.
I don't know if that's enough.
Why isn't it?
It depends on
Well,
the extreme
then
harm
I-
that they
Be
do.
convinced.
No, that's because if it's a social thing, that's. I mean, it's not a commensurate punishment, is it? Right? If you do something that you could basically humiliate me in front of a whole bunch of people just by insulting me, right? And that could really humiliate me. That could completely fuck up my life if things went as bad as they possibly could. But you shouldn't be legally accountable for that because it was only social, and therefore any repercussions should only be social.
I'm going to completely
that is why we have
and say, hold on. Let's say you're standing in front of a large audience of people and performing a speech, and somebody stands up and says, "This man raped me. This man is a rapist, piece of shit."
Like with Julian Assange.
Like with Julian Assange.
No,
that is not.
no, I don't think that should be illegal.
Do you don't think that should be illegal?
No, absolutely not. That guy's a dick.
Kill them,
Okay.
lynch them or
So,
whatever.
wait, what if that guy?
that
what
starts
if- hold up,
happening?
hold-
I can understand that, but
Hold on.
no.
What if that guy stood up? What if that guy stood up and instead of saying a lie, he just started hurling abuse like "fuck you, you suck, you're a piece of shit"? And what if that emotionally damaged me enough that it ruined my life? Right? Then there's a giant harm based on this person's actions and his malicious actions.
What
That
if
doesn't
someone,
fucking matter because he hasn't actually physically harmed my body or my property. So whatever the result is irrelevant.
What if you take that person to court and try to get them in prison for a false rape allegation? What if they actually end up going to prison and it was found out
If you take
later?
that person to court, you have to prove damages. You
Okay.
have to prove that somehow.
Let's say, for example, they just accept what the victim says to be true because that's what they're trying to do.
But once we already took it to court,
And the
once you
person
already took it to court, it's already legal.
Yeah, but what I was saying was an analogy there, right? You do see the analogy there. What I assume that no one here would say that the guy who just stood up and insulted me should go to jail, right?
Anybody who insults Danny should go to jail. They should be killed.
Yeah, actually, okay, that's true. But if it was anyone else, someone who just insults Eleanor, should they go to jail?
Who would insult me?
For fun or like for real?
You suck, Eleanor.
For real, someone
You're
really
a fucking
insults.
potato.
Okay,
You're a fucking potato farmer.
I'm shutting down the stream.
Shut down the stream. Get off the stream.
Okay,
Right.
but yeah, so should someone go to jail for an insult, even if the fallout from that insult is
Insults,
massively
no.
grievous?
Insult?
No, right? Why not?
Because it depends on the amount
doesn't
of
do
because
more.
it's not
that
a
there are.
criminal
If you-
matter.
It's
if
not
you-
affecting other people.
Yeah, it does. It affects that person enormously. Massive emotional harm.
Okay,
and
but
ended up
for
ruining
example,
their
when
fucking
you're
life.
ruining
And everyone-
somebody's
and
business,
everyone in the crowd
Yeah,
now,
if you get-
when you
because
ruin someone's
because of the
business,
personal
you're
cry.
ruining that person's livelihood and everyone else who works for that
So,
company.
Hang on.
Okay, what if that person?
That's
What if
covered
the person
under
on
that's covered under
stage?
libel
What if the
and
person on
slander laws,
stage?
though. So
Yeah,
What if the
slander
person on
laws.
stage starts crying though? Right? Yes, slander laws I'm against, but defamation I'm against. So,
a few reasons.
what if the person on stage starts crying because of your insults?
well,
Just
first
plain
of all,
insults. Hold up, Bones.
it's still very
Just
personal.
what if the person
Okay,
starts
I'm gonna
crying?
go. Thanks for
Can
having
I
me.
answer your
Okay,
question?
and because
No,
and
City,
because he
stay. I
starts
need
crying,
women.
Okay.
and because he starts crying, right?
Someone here
He
identify as a
loses his
woman,
career.
please. We gotta meet our gender quota.
Right. So
Lane, you identify as a woman now, right?
No, xenomorph.
Oh god damn it,
So-
Mitch.
Uh,
You're feminine,
Hell no.
Mitch.
hang on. I want to acknowledge Danny's question here. So, first and foremost is you can't really. It's impossible to prove the sort of causal nature of what transpired. Right, because you're talking about a subjective phenomenon, short of being able to like peek into their brain and see how all the neural synapses go off and whatnot, it's impossible to see sort of whether that harm that you caused is it the act itself or was it the person that the act was done to, right? Like,
Okay, I can fix
somebody, right? Will harm them.
fix the analogy there, because that's what you said there. To me, seems like it's dodging my point. So I want to fix the analogy.
All right.
What if the person in the crowd insults the person on the stage, and everyone in the crowd laughs and no longer respects the person on stage, and the person on stage, his writing career and speaking career is now over?
Well, then you have multiple participants, right? And
An insult wouldn't.
That's
responsible
public-
for collective action.
That's public
right?
Insult-
Okay.
That's not.
Okay,
not.
yeah, public opinion, exactly. So is when someone lies about someone else. That's just public opinion as well.
Right. I
No,
agree with
it's
that.
not.
When you accuse
No,
someone of
and
raping,
that's-
Hang on, there's something I still want to
In the case of a lie,
This is actually the third time we've kind of hinted towards it. one of the most common arguments against anti-defamation laws is that people start to formulate this underlying assumption that if a statement hasn't been challenged in court, then it must therefore be true, which sort of puts the burden of proof on the person being lied about rather than the person who's lying. Whereas if you didn't have defamation law, anti-defamation laws or whatnot, then people would adopt arguably would adopt some sort of basic skepticism towards claims, right? Because people could lie.
What,
Well,
did Bones cut out?
No, we're all here.
Did I? Hello?
I think there's a
No, you said
problem when there's a
because
lie that
Yeah.
Yeah,
is
sorry. Because people
specifically
could lie.
to destroy somebody else. When it's designed specifically to destroy somebody's reputation, to destroy their character, to destroy their business.
I don't understand. What do you mean?
I think those people need
So
to
if I
be
clap
held
my
accountable
hands-
and then
No,
not
there's two
just be.
things there. Hold on, Eleanor. There's the action and then there's the intent. If I clap my hands with the intent of ruining your life, does that make it a criminal offense?
Yeah, I would probably shoot you.
We're not
Really?
talking criminal.
No,
We're
okay.
talking- This goes into the civil courts, not the criminal court.
Well,
You're saying it was
either case,
criminal.
right? Whatever. It
Either case,
doesn't
should it
make
be
it,
an offense?
criminal in an ethical sense, right? Like, obviously not, right? If I'm sitting here clapping my hands, even though I harbor malicious intent against you, it doesn't change the fact that what I'm doing is fundamentally benign.
Well, I mean, I would still 1v1 you in the street.
Okay.
Right?
But all
One
memes
vehicle versus
aside-
one vehicle?
All good fun jokes aside, that doesn't count as an offense, civil or criminal.
No.
Okay, well,
Okay.
what about death threats?
A credible
No.
threat may be.
If it was credible.
Right, but the
What if it was incredible?
Well, no, then no. If it was something that was unbelievable,
The
right?
Incredibles? The Incredibles wouldn't do that to
To
me.
New Zealand and then have it eat Danny. That's not, even if I mean that, right? It's not something that Danny would have sort of legitimate fear. He wouldn't be coerced by that action, right?
So using materia to summon meteor to kill Danny would definitely not.
Right, I
not
wouldn't
that
be-
doesn't count as critical.
I wouldn't be
Okay.
attempting to intimidate his person, right? Or control him through fear.
But isn't that the problem that this bill says? Well, if he actually is intimidated by this, then technically he
But it's
is.
not reasonable in
because
doing
he
so.
identifies as somebody who's offended, and therefore you can be charged.
But he's not. It's not reasonable in his doing so.
Well, does this bill talk about reasonability at all? I
Good,
think that's,
but
I think
we
that's the
talking about
problem.
bill or are we talking
based
about
on
defamation
reasonability
laws?
constantly.
Who cares? We're just merging topics now.
What? Okay.
70
Here's a
76
question
genders
I
is
want to
not
ask.
reasonable at all.
Because this was brought up a few times. I've had this argument with people. I kind of touched upon on my video as well. When you commit a crime, right? When you break the law in some way, even if you don't agree with that law, and the example that I had with people before is weed. If you get caught breaking the law, I still think you should be punished. And some people are trying to say that you should get away with it. I mean, maybe you can lesser the sentence or something, or you should like work on changing the law.
I mean, yeah, okay. So, I mean, the law should, because you have two things going on there, right? Should the law be as it is, right? And should the law be
No.
enforced? Arguably, the law
Yes.
should be enforced.
Yes. Well, I would hope
Wait,
so,
wait,
but some
wait,
people
wait,
are
wait,
saying not.
How
and
can
it's
you
just
say should the law be what it is?
Well-
And if you answered no, then if you answered yes, it should be enforced, then we definitely have a problem here. Because if
Well,
you want
because that-
laws that you don't like enforced,
And the law becomes meaningless.
I want laws to.
Wait,
I
wait,
don't
what about-
want to be enforced, but I want
I
them
think
to
it
be
depends-
changed as well,
I
so
think it
that they are no
depends
longer
which-
enforced.
I think it depends which perspective you're coming at it from. Like some examples of times when you'd have to decide whether to enforce a law, even if you disagree with it, is if you're on a jury and you're going to decide whether to do jury nullification, which is basically when you disagree with the law, so you say he's innocent even if you know he's guilty. right?
Or an
Is it
officer of the law
ethically
can
justified?
determine whether to enforce it or not.
Yeah,
The
something like
question
that. But
is
I think
the question is kind of
more like-
interesting though, because like I think we should definitely change the law if we disagree with it, or we should change the punishment according to the law. But
Yeah.
to argue,
I agree.
Here's
with
my
you,
problem.
but as an
When laws
individual-
aren't
it's kind
enforced,
of a gray area though, doesn't it? Because it's
yeah,
like then you're asking everybody involved to say, oh, maybe we shouldn't enforce the law or not, instead of just merely going ahead and doing so based upon best judgment. You know.
So the question is, would you vote guilty on a possession of marijuana charge? I assume everyone here doesn't think that marijuana should be illegal.
I think it should
Depends.
be legal in all cases.
Everyone thinks it should be totally
Is it
legal.
used
Yeah.
is it being used for trafficking?
Right.
Is it being used for
No, it's personal use.
to buy
I would
illegal?
say personal use.
Just for trafficking. Yeah.
I don't,
There's
I don't
also
As
think
far as I
use.
know, the United,
Maybe not legal, maybe definitely decriminalized.
Oh,
as far
decriminalized.
as I know,
Okay.
there's nothing in the Constitution. There's nothing in the Constitution that indicates that people do not have a right to choose what they ingest or imbibe.
Yeah,
Right.
there is. The Constitution also validates other laws passed. So, I mean,
What my
Well, you know,
problem is
there's
though,
that-
people are
there's
like,
that
we should
consequence
keep
of,
laws. Like the example I brought up before, we should keep laws like blasphemy laws. The reason why we still have
what?
blasphemy laws is that
Wait,
people
what?
don't enforce those laws. If you start enforcing blasphemy laws, those laws will cease to exist very, very, very quickly. But
Except
they're
they
still
haven't.
around if we're not
We do.
enforcing them. There's a law
Right, they're
there
not
that just
enforced, they still
exists.
they're
exist.
blue
That's
laws
what I'm
basically
saying.
at this point.
Like, because it's not being
Right.
enforced. I think all laws
But-
should be enforced, whether
should
you
be-
agree with them
okay.
or not, and then they should be changed because that's how you get that change. Because if they're just guidelines that are sitting there, people don't even know that there are blasphemy laws in this country until the whole Stephen Fry thing came up.
yeah.
They're just sitting
So,
there.
I can
but
agree
if
with
you're
that.
on the jury, like, I just want to see on an individual basis what you'd actually do, though. I mean, let's say that you're on the jury for someone being charged under blasphemy laws.
If those
Well,
laws
are
exist,
you going
yes,
to
they're
vote guilty if you
guilty.
think they're guilty?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're totally guilty. You know,
I
100% they
think
are
no,
definitely
absolutely not.
violate.
And
Oh,
no,
you're
no,
going
I,
to vote
I,
guilty.
I'll have to
abandon
disagree.
my ability to serve as a juror
Guys.
by saying I would do jury nullification.
Exactly.
The best thing
Right.
you can actually do is to usually can set a precedent over and over and over again where somebody gets charged with the law and isn't completely not found guilty by a jury. So yeah, it's actually
Yes.
better to if there's a law you disagree with, to just go into the jury and say, I don't find him guilty. And then next time a lawyer can
Okay.
argue, well, here's someone getting charged with it and they were found innocent because clearly this law isn't being enforced by society.
Because it establishes a legal precedent.
So,
And maybe
Eleanor,
we should start
would you
establishing a lot more
convict
legal
someone?
precedents.
I want to know
Sorry?
if Eleanor would, because Eleanor, you're the one who said that we should enforce all laws. Would you actually
If
do that on
someone
an
was
individual
guilty
basis?
of- If someone was found guilty of weed possession or whatever in this country
Illicit
where it's
blasphemy laws
illegal,
and not found. No. You're on the
it's
jury.
blasphemy. Yeah, I'm saying
You're,
if they are
you're on the
guilty,
jury. Are you,
yeah, if they're guilty, I will say they're guilty. I'm not going to say they're not
Alright,
guilty
good.
because I disagree with that law because that law exists. They're guilty of that crime.
okay.
And you would advocate
Absolutely, because-
punishment then.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't agree with that punishment. I don't agree with that law, but they're guilty of it. And I think that's
Well,
the only way you can actually get laws that you disagree with changed. I don't think voting not
What?
guilty every
No,
time
no,
works because this is why we still have blasphemy laws in the first place.
Here's
Well,
what I
then
want to
aren't you
know:
throwing that
is the
aren't you
blasphemy
throwing
law?
Stephen Fry under the bus at that point in order to get the law changed?
It also takes a lot of
They
time
broke
to
the law.
change laws.
They
as
threw
well.
themselves under the bus.
Yeah,
Nah,
it
this
also
is
takes a lot of time to change laws. So I would say that it's also a waste of taxpayer money to do that kind of thing instead of just ignoring it. You know, because most
I wanna
states
know
just
if the
kind of ignore it
blasphemy law is a
until there
criminal
is
offense.
an actual precedent where it's like an actual kind of real thing, like the thing with Stephen Fry, and that brought it into the media attention. And there is a lot of talk about, okay, well maybe we should change this thing because laws have to be modular, and also the thing.
So
is
no,
if
you're
you
now you're being
enforce it-
selective about the law,
If
and
you
everyone should
enforce
be everyone should be equal under the law. But you're like, oh well, I like Stephen Fry. I don't want him to be prosecuted.
No, it's not about
Hold
Stephen
on.
Fry.
Are you
It's about
But it
blasphemy
is.
laws. It's about it. Okay.
Are you expecting the system that you're unhappy with, the one that makes money off of jailing you and off of fining you and off of enforcing these laws, to change these laws to make your life easier? You have to fight
Probably
the system
not.
within the system every chance you get. Yeah, you go to jury duty and you find that person innocent if you think that there's a specific problem. Like, fine. Me and my friends smoked a bunch of fucking
They're not
weed.
innocent.
A bunch of us got
not
arrested for this shit. Other people got
They're
arrested.
not
Yeah.
innocent.
Huh?
They broke the law. They're not innocent. Why would I find them innocent if they broke the law?
Okay, but
Because you
wait,
don't
what is
agree
the...
with the law.
Okay. We're going back to the...
You're talking
the
about...
libertarian perspective of things. Who the hell is the government to tell me what I can and can't do with my body? Isn't that the entire feminist perspective? Who the hell is the government to tell me whether I can get or can't get abortion?
So what, there should be no laws?
I didn't say there should be no
some
laws. There's plenty of other laws
There should be
protecting,
no laws.
protecting me,
No, there laws
protecting
that
my
There should
property.
be no
protecting-
laws that inhibit the rights of the individual.
I agree. I don't believe that there should be laws against weed. I don't.
No. They can make laws preventing businesses from selling it.
And
They
what I was
can make
saying
laws
about
about importing it.
No, I don't agree with that.
But you don't want the
It's
law
illegal
enforced
to
at that
sell
point.
what I was saying about
The really bad
enforcement is that it comes down to whether the judge thinks that there's a necessity for punishment at that point, and that becomes a sentencing thing. So I guess it's more like on a case by case basis and that sort of thing. But like I said, I mean, but yeah, I totally agree. I think you should not participate with laws that you disagree with, because otherwise, yeah,
Otherwise, you're
I agree.
a bad citizen.
yeah, you're part of
No, you're upholding the
part of
law.
the problem.
You're upholding the law.
The law is the
Right.
problem, Doug. I don't want to hold that.
Yeah, no,
Let's not.
Then
We got to
change it.
remember
Get
that.
Wait.
that
Get the law changed.
Haven't they had
Well,
like
I will
20
try
years
to
of
get the law-
sending people
in
to
fact,
jail for
Eleanor-
smoking like a joint on their own porch?
Yeah.
Hasn't there been
Eleanor,
enough
you
people
know
sent
what,
to
I
jail
can't-
for it?
What I can
You
actually
can't
do is do
conflate
both
the
of those
idea
things.
of
I can
law.
both advocate it be changed and not enforce it whenever I get the chance. I can do both.
I agree with that.
laws are not automatically about right and wrong. That's why
That's not
I would
Eleanor's
have to
argument
say
here, as
not
far as I
guilty.
can tell. So
The thing you have
There
to also
was-
consider. Hold on. The thing you also have to
Person in
consider is
possession of the weed had caused harm to
if you're
someone.
going to
it's
respond to
so
a
obvious.
point, you should respond to the point, right? The point is, or at least the argument, is that if the laws are unenforced, then they remain. Right? People won't be outraged enough to actually demand that the law be changed. And that allows the government to sort of arbitrarily enforce the law. And that's
That
concerning.
is selective,
That's true,
right?
too.
And this is the exact same problem with
It's
this
a,
bill, the C-16 bill.
Yes. I agree with
But
that.
this bill is going to be selective. I can't go and
Exactly. It
fucking-
can only be
No,
selective.
I
because
can't
everyone
go and
will be
complain
guilty
about
of
people
this.
calling me cisgendered because that might offend me. I'm not gonna get that fucking person charged. No one's gonna take me seriously.
No, that's
if I
not
come
the
to
point that I'm making here, right? So,
That's
for
the point I'm
example,
making.
with a blasphemy law, right? Let's say I become like a political candidate or something, right? I start to petition to become prime minister or whatever, right? Then my opposition party can start digging up the fact that I'm, vocally anti-theist or whatever, and start saying, "Oh, well, this is blasphemy law. He's a criminal, right? We need to do something about this." And the government, by all rights, could. They could arrest me, and they could find a jury that will find me guilty and throw me in prison. Even though the only reason that they're doing that is because I pose a political threat. In
Pretty
context,
much.
right?
I say we try, if this bill gets passed, I say we try to charge as much people with it as possible so that it goes as
don't know
quickly
if I
as
agree with
possible.
that.
No,
Because
but
it's
that's
not,
my point.
it's not a
They're
law that
not
should
going to
exist.
charge. They're not going to charge anyone that I wanna charge.
I
They're
don't
not-
want
I'm not-
laws that aren't enforced. I don't want them to exist.
No, I
On the
agree.
other side- on the
I
other
agree,
side
but I
of
also
that-
don't
on
want
the other
stupid
side of
laws
that-
that don't make any sense.
Yeah, but if you're not enforcing them, then they're going to continue to exist.
But then all you're saying is, okay, but then that's sort of faulty, right? Because then you could just be arguing, well, I think that anybody who violates the law should just be murdered. Because
No.
then it'll be
We're
significant
not
enough
slippery sloping to
that
murder.
people
Whoa,
will change it.
where
No,
am I saying
listen,
that?
listen.
What?
No,
So
Bones is right.
I don't
So
think
kind
you've
of
actually understood
listen
what
to
I'm
his
saying.
point.
I don't think you guys are understanding what I'm saying here. If you're trying to stir up dissent among the general populace against the thing that you actually want to be changed, then their dissent should be founded upon what the thing actually is, not saying that we should make that thing arbitrarily worse so that people will want to change it under that context. Right?
Why can't you do both? Why can't you do both? Like you can
Because-
attack
because
blasphemy
you're
laws
not into
before.
both.
You're not
What?
really having people sort of change things on the basis that of what it actually is, right? You're not saying, hey, we should change this because it allows or facilitates the government to arbitrarily enforce law, but you're saying that we're going to have to make this thing super bad so that it'll be changed, right? And that's faulty to me, because then you could just say, well, you know, how about anybody who doesn't refer to somebody by the right pronouns is murdered, right? The government executes them in front of everybody in the town square or whatever.
Why would the government do that?
Well, to change the law, right? To make the law not to generate enough.
That's not going to be the law.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
That's not going to be
Not
the
yet.
law.
No, I'm not saying
Not
that's
yet, it
gonna.
won't.
What I'm saying is saying that
I would hope that people would try and change that before that happens.
Yes, but you're not really listening, right? I'm saying that the point is that when you advocate that you make something bad so that it'll generate outright. Oh my God! 1 second. Jesus, I don't know if you guys can hear that.
No.
Hang on a second.
Well, I have a response though to Eleanor's, what Eleanor was saying. If you're going to make sure that someone gets charged with this law so that we can get rid of it,
Sorry about that.
all you're doing is ensuring 100% that bad outcome, someone being charged with the law, happens. So if you don't do that, right, let's say you don't enforce it, and then sometime in the future, the thing you're worried about happens and it is arbitrarily enforced, well, you just said that that law being enforced will be sufficient to get people to remove that law. Well, then they'll remove it then, right? Like, you're not actually saving anything by postponing, by refusing to postpone it. If in the future, basically you're choosing between definitely happening now versus maybe happening in the future, and you're picking definitely happening now.
I believe that any law that exists now should be enforced. All of the laws that exist should be enforced. Whether you agree with them or not, they are laws. They should be enforced. You don't agree with the laws. You don't agree with the laws. You break the laws.
I know you believe that. I
Don't
just
get
made a
caught.
counter argument. Did you?
That your basis for that was that to.
But you're
If
going to
laws are
say
enforced-
that if someone is guilty of committing a crime, you're going to say that they're innocent because you
Yes.
don't
No,
agree
not
with
for
that.
innocent.
Because
I'm gonna-
you
I'm
don't
gonna go
agree
for
with
jury
that.
nullification.
What
There's
are
a
you doing
distinction
there? It's taking the law into your own hands in that case because you don't agree
Danny,
with that law.
But isn't that what a jury is all about? The whole point of bringing the jury together is to be judged by your peers whether you broke the law, whether they believe that you actually broke the law. That's the whole
Right.
point
Juries
of a jury.
also
It's
judge
not
the
just
law.
a judge. Yeah.
Juries don't
There's a
just judge the
difference,
person.
though, right?
Juries
There's
do
a
not.
difference between saying
only
not
judge
guilty and jury
the law,
nullification.
also
Those aren't the
judge
same thing.
Juries are also there to judge the law, in addition to judging the accused.
Right.
Everyone
That's why
should
jury nullification
understand
is
the
a
law.
microphone.
The law should be simple. The law should be enforced.
I agree with all of those statements.
Except
However-
about law being enforced.
Well, no, I agree that the laws should be enforced, right? Like there should be the legal structure there to enforce the laws. However, if they are a shitty law, I'm going to attempt to subvert that in those cases as an individual.
I mean, I would set up a petition.
Okay.
I would try and
Have
change
you-
things. I would try and not get that person prosecuted.
Okay, here we go.
But if
Have
it goes
you
to
ever
court,
done
if
anything
it goes to
illegal?
me being a judge, me,
Have you ever done anything illegal, Eleanor?
of course not.
Of course not.
Never in your whole life.
No,
Really?
no,
Okay,
no.
well, you use me as an
I
example.
did
Just use me as an
nothing
example. I'll
illegal
admit to a
that
lot of
I would
things.
ever
You never
confess
jaywalked?
to online. You can all go fuck
Okay.
yourselves.
So, have you ever done anything illegal? Actually, all jokes aside.
I'm not confessing to any illegal things.
You
on
don't have to
fucking
say what it
internet.
is. You just have to say whether you have or not.
I'm not confessing to.
Jesus Christ.
I'm
Okay, I'm going to assume that's a
exercise my
yes.
right to
I'm going to
remain
assume that
silent.
yes. Well, then you're going to exercise your right to remain silent. There we go. You are avoiding being punished under this law. You are not upholding your own standard of having the laws enforced. You're subverting the enforcement of laws right now by not turning
How?
yourself in.
Actually, it's not a subversion. It's she's invoking her constitutional protection. So that's.
Oh, sure, but
that's
she's
perfectly
avoiding.
correct. Sorry.
She wants those laws to be enforced. If she did the crime, she wants to be punished for it, right? That's how this works.
If I
Yeah, but
if I
she's
get
not
caught
gonna
breaking the
confess to
law,
it.
Well,
Why
no,
are
you
you
don't need to.
enforcing the law then? Why aren't you
Yes,
enforcing the law yourself?
Basically, if what if you'd lie for your friend though, wouldn't you, to cover them up? If they, you wouldn't turn your friend in if they've got a stash somewhere, right? You're now lying in order to prevent another person from being punished. It's exactly what I'm doing when I jury nullify.
Right, so we should all take the law into our own hands. Okay, got it. I get
Yes.
what you're
But
saying.
you do.
Oh,
But you do.
hyperbole.
Well, but you currently are, Eleanor, is what I'm saying.
Eleanor didn't do nothing wrong.
Yeah, I didn't do nothing.
That's
I
what I
don't know what
say.
you're talking about.
Everyone's
Well, what's
broken.
more important? What's more important? What's a more valid position to take? Protecting your rights or obeying the law? Which is a more valid position?
Your rights. The
The
law's
law,
supposed
the
to
law
facilitate that.
applies to all. We're all equal under the law. Okay, so I'm not going to make exceptions for certain people. I don't think that's fair.
You clearly aren't equal under the law.
It's largely our
Or
okay.
you may
your
Gabby,
last
what's
name
happening
is
with your
right
camera?
now.
I'm just
Seriously.
leaning forward.
No, we need to change our whole attitude around the law. Like, we really need to change so many of the laws that exist. Maybe
There's way
something.
too many. There's way too much criminal prosecution, and there's way too many criminal laws. Like that's something that Gorsuch, the new Supreme Court justice that was appointed in the U.S., that's what he was talking about in his interview that he had before he was appointed. That he tried to repeal some of the criminal laws, but like he had a whole team working for him, and and they came back with like reams and reams of stuff, and it's like 750,000 pages or some kind of ridiculous number that they came back with. It's like, oh, we just got started, by the way, and these are all criminal laws. There's like way too much stuff. So I sort of agree with Eleanor in saying that there are way too many fucking laws. So let's try to
I mean,
that.
I would prefer to try and change it before anyone gets prosecuted. But if it
listen,
comes to
I agree. I agree that there are too many laws and that many of the laws need to be reformed or abolished or whatever, right? Changed. in some
absolutely.
meaningful capacity. But that there's a difference there, because
Qualified.
if you're saying that the best way to do that is to exacerbate the negative impact of those laws being on record, then no, I don't agree with that. I think then you're saying that those laws ought to be changed, not because of the law that they are, but the law that they could be.
Well, here's the thing in Ireland with the blasphemy laws. They still exist to pander to these religious people, and no one will bother to get them changed. They're going to stick around. No one's going to be like, oh yeah, let's go change that. That's not going to happen.
Then why
It
aren't they-
takes
Why is that a
something like Stephen Fry
why
almost,
should they be changed? Okay, so
because
it takes
laws
something
should be
where-
enforced. There shouldn't be
Right, so it
laws
takes
like
something-
that.
it takes- hang on. So in other words, it takes a circumstance that has happened irrespective of the uniform enforcement of these laws, right, to get people's attention. And if it never gets people's attention, then why ought the law be changed? If the overwhelming majority of people don't have a problem with it, why does it need to be reconciled?
Okay, so we just have a bunch of laws that aren't enforced. Why would we do that?
That's a
I'm
shitty
not
idea. We
saying-
should
I'm
try
not
to get them
advocating for
removed.
that.
You already have them.
You're
But
missing my
your
point.
method of getting rid of them is worse than just leaving them there.
Demonstrably, right? Because that's why people are outraged.
How many
I-
innocent people do we have to send to?
But they're not
how many-
innocent. They're
how many
guilty.
How many vaguely guilty people do we have to send to jail
Vaguely
for one law to
guilty.
get repealed? How many hundreds of thousands of people need to be fucking arrested for smoking weed on their porch before someone eventually gets around to legalizing marijuana? Like, how many? How many young kids have to get criminal records? And I'm not saying spend time in juvie.
I mean, I think we can make it happen.
104.
I mean, I think we can make. I mean, those laws are changing right now anyway. Currently, I don't think it will take long, but I think we'd already have those
in
um,
Ireland or in Canada or in the
after how
States?
long?
everywhere in the States, in Canada, in Ireland.
Well, they just
After
push
how
back
long?
again.
Those laws are coming,
That's the
and
question.
After,
And
they're coming soon.
after how many convictions?
But
After
we would
how
have
many
had it.
courts
We would
rulings?
have had those laws way sooner if we had laws that we were actually going to enforce. Because then we might even have laws in the first place if we weren't going to properly enforce them. We wouldn't even have a
laws
lot
are
of these
enforced.
laws. And this is the point of having laws.
Drug laws are enforced.
What?
Drug laws
Those
are
laws
enforced.
are enforced.
Constantly.
I'm gonna trigger Eleanor actually, just for one sec though. In England, if you're caught with weed, you can usually either bribe an officer with it or they won't enforce it. Either one. You know, usually if you
I'm
just
from Ireland. You
give
don't
up
have
their
to tell
stash.
me that. I know how these things work.
Okay.
I'm saying.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying that.
No, it's
you know,
completely
it's
corrupt.
not. It's not
It's a
enforced.
completely bad way of doing things.
It is.
So
It is.
ridiculous.
But the other thing is too that if they bothered to enforce it, they know that it would bring up more paperwork. It would also bring up the issue of prosecution, and their jails would be overcrowded, which that's a huge problem. So.
Let me ask you a question.
Wait. Anti-sleeper in the chat has a question. Let's pander to the audience. Someone in the chat has a question. Hot Potato, do you think there's such a thing as an unjust law?
Absolutely. I think there's tons of unjust laws. I just came up with ones there.
Do you just think
Blasphemy
that people
laws,
should go to jail for
weed
it
laws.
until like critical capacity, when the jails are just full of people who smoke too much weed, and then people will think about changing the laws?
Well, no, I think people are already thinking about laws. I don't think that you necessarily need that to change
Let me
laws.
ask you a question here. Okay, so imagine for a moment that you had a law that it was illegal to wear purple, and in fact, it was so illegal that the response, the legally mandated response, was a public execution. Okay, but this law was literally never enforced. Is it a problem? And if so, is it a problem on par with, say, the current drug laws?
Wait, Bones, you cut out a little bit there. So it's so illegal that someone gets publicly executed.
Okay,
Right.
well, you're
Is this-
coming up with an insane hypothetical here. I would try and change the laws. I would try and change the laws before that happens.
That's not hypothetical.
So wait,
Literally
no,
in
can we go back
Canada,
to-
right now, if you
Bones,
speak
bring-
ill of the Queen, you can still be hung.
Bones dots aren't... Okay, that's really weird. But that's... Actually, let's go with that one. Yeah, so you speak ill of the Queen in Canada, you can be hung, right? Eleanor, let's say someone is charged with speaking ill of the Queen in Canada, right? They dig up this old law, and you're on the jury. Are you going to vote guilty and get this person killed?
Yeah.
Or are you going to say, let's
Yeah,
not...
kill the
You really...
person.
You are.
Yeah, kill the person.
Holy shit, you're really going to go all the way on this one.
Yeah, why not?
Why? What's the
You're a
purpose?
crazy person.
Why?
Because that law shouldn't exist in the first place, and that law is going to continue to exist until someone gets hung.
No, that's incorrect. Why would it exist until somebody...
Why does it still exist? Why can't we get rid of it?
Why
Why
couldn't
do
we
laws
just
still
not?
exist?
Why couldn't we just not enforce it? Because
So
if
why don't we
do
have a bunch of
enforce
laws that we don't enforce?
Hang on,
Hang
just
on,
don't interrupt me
yeah.
for 1 second, please. Okay, why don't we just not enforce that law until we can get it changed? Because we all agree that it's a stupid law.
Right.
How about that? I mean, that's basically
And in addition, this goes back to my previous point, right? If this law is never
I would say
enforced.
just don't get caught. That's what I would say. Don't get caught doing it.
Ugh.
But my point is that if the law is never enforced, right, then why does it need to be changed?
yeah.
I
And
mean,
that's
I've
like
already
that
said
was
this a
point
good
that
few times. I've been through
I'm not.
this.
Okay, maybe you could reiterate because I don't remember. Let's say it's an inherent rule that this law is never enforced.
An inherent rule. How would that be an
Right.
inherent rule? That a law.
I don't know. Let's just say that it's like, I don't know. It happens. It just so happens to be a law of the universe that the law is never enforced. And so there doesn't seem to be any credible fear of it being arbitrarily enforced. Everyone disagrees with the law and it's terrible, but it's never enforced. Why would the law need to be changed?
there might be a circumstance where the people in power just start enforcing it.
No,
Let's
it's
say
the
they
law of
don't-
the universe and it can't happen.
Well, see, this type
That
of law.
is a massive hypothetical.
Yeah, but the
like, you're
hypothetical
completely
proves-
changing
It's
it
not
at
a
that point.
hypothetical.
The hypothetical is to make a point about
You're
the
saying that
logic
there's a
here.
law that isn't a law, that doesn't exist and isn't enforced. Like or that does exist that isn't enforced. So therefore, it's not even a law because it's never enforced.
Right? This is what I'm saying then.
It's-
So if
it's-
you're saying, if the answer is, well, it doesn't matter because the law is literally never enforced, right? Then the only reason to change the law is because it's going to be enforced. So why would you contribute to the negative factor compelling you to change the law?
Because that helps you change it.
That's ridiculous then. Again, you could say then, by that logic, that the best way to change laws that we don't like is to hyperbolize them to an extreme. literally kill people for breaking it.
But you don't need to do that. I'm not saying you go to
I
extremes to
agree
start
you don't
killing
need to
people.
do that because you can change the law.
I would
without
change it
actually
before it
enforcing
happens.
it.
Yeah, I would try and change it
Yeah,
before it
in
happens.
fact, you know what's going
And
to
I
happen
wouldn't
with the
try
Stephen
and
Fry
prosecute.
case? So Stephen Fry, I'm assuming, is not going to be convicted of blasphemy unless I'm missing some
He was
news.
supposed to be fined, but he didn't end up prosecuted.
Okay, but this is probably enough outrage that it may start to get some progress on removing these blasphemy laws, yes? If it isn't, then him actually getting fined wouldn't have helped. Right? So, therefore, doing the jury nullification and not enforcing it isn't going to stop it from being a public outrage, because people go, oh, it was someone was nearly convicted. And so, therefore, that on its own is going to be an impetus to remove the law. So you get what you wanted without the thing you didn't want.
Because this is the thing,
someone being
right?
punished under an unjust law.
We already disagree with the law. It's already a threat. There is already fair reason to advocate it being changed. You don't need to add more reasons for that reason to stand.
For it to stand, why would it stand?
Look, if there's no
Let's
reason to
all-
change the law, then there's no reason to change the law. You don't have to change the law, right? The QED.
There is a reason to change the law if the law
Exactly.
is bad.
So
It
you don't
could be
need to add
enforced
more
at some point.
reasons.
Thanks, Andre.
It could be enforced at some point, so
That's
let's
up some,
enforce it
right?
now. Like, okay, let's say I've got a gun with one bullet in it, right? And you say, well, you'd better shoot me in the head right now because you might shoot me in the head at some point later. This is essentially what you're doing.
That's a false equivalence.
It's exactly
Fair.
the same.
That's a false
Here's
equivalence.
a good one. Here's
Because
a good
you
one. Right, so
might.
it is very bad.
Okay, no, I want that exact analogy because that is it's perfect. There is no difference between these two things.
That's a false
So
equivalence. That's not law.
it isn't. What's the difference?
One is a law.
Okay, yes, but it's you were willing to do it when it would kill someone, right? So that's the bullet in this gun that this law, when enforced, results in someone being killed. You're going to do it because if you don't, then it might happen in the future.
And be far worse. Sure.
And how would it be worse? It would be enforced.
Because the public opinion could change and it could get even worse.
Well,
For-
everyone's
for
forgetting
example-
about political
It could change anyway.
expediency.
Well, people are pandering to these laws that are ridiculous, right? I mean, soon we could be pandering to Sharia laws and things like that. If they just exist there as a kind of we're just going to pander, we're just going to have these laws, but they're not really be laws. What happens in the future when people start to take these seriously and it's used selectively? What happens when it is picked selectively? Right? With this bill that's coming in, it's going to be chosen selectively.
Then again,
I want
and
this
again,
law to be
enforced.
enforced against the
Right.
people.
So if this law, so
We go back
you're
to the other
saying this
point.
law being enforced is going to result, right? If this law is enforced, that will result in it being removed. This is what you're saying, right?
If everyone starts being charged and found guilty of this law for actually committing this law that exists, then it's going to change. Yeah.
So, but this is
Okay,
again, this is
so
the
why
situation I'm
enforce
talking
it
about,
now?
right?
Why
You're
not wait to
saying
see if
that.
it does, and then it'll get changed then, and there's no difference, right?
This is ridiculous. Is rape bad?
There is a difference because there's you breaking the law. You're breaking the law. You're saying
got
you're legitimizing breaking laws that you disagree with.
Wait,
That's what
hang
you're
on. So
doing
is
here.
rape bad?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Is rape bad?
Okay, you're fine with that. I'm not fine with that. I'm not fine with that. I'm not fine with people taking
Okay,
the law
go
into their
through
own
Bones'
hands.
questions then.
Is
Okay,
rape
I'm
bad?
not. You're saying it's okay because you're given specific examples where you disagree
Okay,
with that.
so
And
Eleanor
most
is
people
fundamentally
disagree with
against
that.
You
But
think
when-
it's okay as well, but like, you think it's okay to not obey laws you don't agree with?
I don't know.
Yes, you do, because you've broken the law, because everyone has broken the
Turn
law.
yourself in for jaywalking.
Yeah, turn yourself in for jaywalking or listening to
I've
illegal
never
music or
broken the
doing
law
some
in my
drug.
life. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right.
That's
So you're going to then turn in anyone you see because everyone's broken the law.
I will
Right.
start.
We're gonna
Yeah, you
continue
can
to
start
ignore
reporting.
political
If you
expediency.
start reporting people for doing that, then people are like, "Oh shit, I don't want to be charged with this crime," and then we get changed pretty damn quickly.
Okay, then why aren't you
Guys.
turning yourself in then?
Okay. Can I just get in here because I've listened enough of this and I feel like some fucking sanity needs to be interjected here.
Oh,
Okay.
you're the man to do it,
Old
Sandra.
centrist.
All right,
okay.
yeah. So hot potato. Did you realize? And this is one of the few times. This is one of the rare times when I actually think that Danny who's a fucking moron, is actually mostly correct.
Oh, holy shit. I must be wrong. If Sandra agrees. That's it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. See, what you're suggesting here, Hot Potato, is that is like okay, there's no easy way to say this. 1984 has nothing on you.
This is all nonsense.
I will take that as a
compliment.
compliment.
No. The problem is you're advocating that to generate dissent against a thing, it needs to be worse than it is.
I don't think it does necessarily, but it can help
You
in
don't
certain
need to
cases.
enforce the law.
The law needs to be enforced in all cases.
Holy shit.
You're going to selectively enforce the law and selectively enforce it on certain individuals. That becomes a serious problem. That becomes a serious problem. What I'm advocating is that you be consistent.
All right.
That's all I'm advocating. You don't take the law into your own hands and you be consistent.
Listen. Okay. Danny is actually onto something here, which is very rare, but he
You're all like
is onto something.
anarchists.
Listen, this is important that you understand. The kind of mentality you have right now is very dangerous because I know this might come as a shock, but your judgment is not perfect, okay? And you're not without sin.
I don't think it is. I'm not saying I am.
This mentality you have that, I've never broken a law, blah, 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 blah. No, you have.
I'm going to defend Eleanor right now because it's not an argument. Sorry. Like, respond to the actual point.
No, but this is the actual point. Your stance, Hot Potato, it requires you, okay? Requires you to be the most perfect human being you can ever imagine. That is the problem with your stance.
The law shouldn't require that. The law shouldn't require that.
The law.
I don't understand this flow of logic.
I just want to put my hand up here and say, Sandre said he agrees with me, but I don't know what the hell he's on about.
Yeah,
Right. Let me make this very simple, okay? Let me make this very simple. Right. The idea, Hot Potato, the idea that you should okay, let's say that you are in a jury, okay? Like the scenario before.
Mm-hmm.
And you say that no matter what, you would convict someone, okay, no matter how ridiculous the law was. Again, I didn't listen to the entire conversation. Maybe this is something I misinterpreted, but that's the impression I got. That no matter how ridiculous the law was, even if it was to sentence someone to death for said ridiculous law, you would do such. Is that correct or not?
Well, the first thing I would try to do with a ridiculous law is to change it. Upon that not being
And yet you
achievable,
would enforce it.
then I would enforce it. Yeah.
But that's all right. I have a hard time seeing how you can.
I mean, there does come a point. There does come a point where we have to stand up against certain laws.
But why would you then convict someone based on that law?
Well, there does come a point where you have to not do
that. That point
when
be
the government
you are responsible for
becomes
someone's life?
Tyrannical, then there does come a point where you shouldn't enforce the law.
I can't imagine anything more tyrannical than sentencing someone to death for a ridiculous law.
Okay, that was a bit extreme. That
no
was
shit.
Extreme. But
So
if
here's the point I'm making,
the law was like a fine or something, I would want to enforce that.
Okay, fair enough.
There's also the fact that if you're going to enforce every law, then basically every citizen has to be police for everybody else, which brings
Thank
in
you.
like things like the Stasi that were in East Germany. The stuff that's going on in China right now, where you have like this little card.
I'm saying if you get caught. I'm saying if you get caught.
The point is that whether or not, when somebody has been caught with the law, whatnot, if it should be enforced by the people who would normally enforce it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to take another step further and just say, well, then everybody has to be secret police and stuff like that. That strikes me as not.
Do you think the police? Can I actually ask this because it was brought up earlier? Do you think the police should enforce the weed laws? Because that's their job. You think they should do their job? You don't think they should do their job? Okay.
At
I
this
I
point-
disagree.
At this point, the
This is
political
the
climate
point
is so
before.
strong pro marijuana that most of the police don't bother doing it unless there's a specific court order or like they have a warrant specifically to search someone's house. But I
Or
personally seen
trafficking.
them.
If
Yeah,
there's
I've seen
suspicion
search-
So this
of
goes back.
trafficking.
So this goes back to the original
I-
point, right? Because if the argument was that the only way to get the law changed is to have
I never
uniform
said the
enforcement of
only
it,
way. I never said the only way.
the best, I guess, the
I
best.
didn't even say the best way. I've said sometimes.
Well, if it's not the best way, then how about we do it in one of the ways that's better?
Sometimes it's
right. So you can
quicker.
say that's not the best.
I
Let's do it
believe
in the
doing the
better way
better.
that also doesn't result in people being punished by unjust laws.
I still think people should be punished by unjust laws, depending
Why?
I know you
depending
think that.
depending on how unjust they are. Okay, there
Why?
does come a point where if the government is too
Why?
tyrannical,
Let's assume that
and
it's
you're,
like
you're
marginally unjust.
enforcing
Why
laws
should
that
it be
people haven't
enforced?
agreed upon that weren't agreed upon, then there's a problem.
I don't know why.
What do you mean?
You have a law
I
that is
mean, I've
marginally unjust. Why ought it be enforced?
Because it's a law.
That's
Because
That
circular
is
reasoning.
not-
because
Where's
okay.
Stephen Molyneux when you need him?
Okay. Can I interject again? First of all, I want to say hello to Catherine, who was shouting me out in the chat. Hello, and thank you for being a productive memester on my server. I really do appreciate it. Anyway, see, here's the thing. There is a logical basis for laws. There's a reason why we have laws in society. Laws are important, and they should be there. But that being said, unless
You
there's
just like
some,
get to the point, man. You're waffling on and saying nothing.
I've hardly said anything at all so far in this discussion.
It's the same thing that Eleanor just said. There's a reason why the laws are important. Say the
Yeah,
reason.
but I'm trying to make a point.
Yeah.
Now there are different ways of making a point, Bones. Not everyone is satisfied with a bite-sized chunk that is short but lacks any kind of rigor.
It does. If you just say a bunch of
You're
shit,
not
and
adding
actually
rigor.
get to the point that has no actual bearing on the thing you're trying to say, then it's just fluff. It doesn't add context or
this
nuance.
fluff?
You're just waffling on to sound smart.
How is this fluff?
There's a reason. Here, I'll do an argument like that. There's a reason why the law is really important, and we need to consider this reason because it's,
Yes,
it's
I'm
very
setting up
important
a
and relevant to
framework for the
consideration
argument
of
to
the
be
argument
made.
at hand. Just say the reason.
I'm trying to put up a framework to really make it clear so I'm not taken out of context later on, for instance, by likes of you.
Oh my
Bones,
God! If
I
I
think
take
you're
you out of
being-
context
I think
later
you're
on,
being
I
a little
misrepresent
insulting.
your
No,
argument,
I'm
say
serious. I'm
misrepresenting
serious.
your
I
argument.
care about being understood. And I'm sorry, Bones. I'm going
Fluff
to take
doesn't
my
help you be
time to make an
understood.
argument to make sure that it's watertight.
I'm going to make an
Dude,
argument
adding
that's super
fluff
sound,
does not make it more
really
watertight.
important. Everything I'm saying is
How
going to be
is it
full of
fluff?
nuance and context. It's really, really important that everybody listen and accurately represent this argument later down the road. There's a really important reason that laws are in society. It's pivotal. It's, if you don't consider it, then you're only getting half
I
of the
wasn't
argument.
even
You see
allowed
how
to
I
make
just
the
spoke
actual
for like
point
30
before
seconds
you
there and said
interjected.
nothing?
This is giving me jock itch.
Right. How am I supposed to make a point, okay, if I'm not sure that I'm going to be properly understood? No. You're literally laughing at the idea of being
Waffling on
properly
about nothing
understood.
doesn't help
No,
convey.
we're laughing at the idea that any of the shit you said facilitated anyone understanding you better.
I have just recently joined this discussion. I was trying to make a proper point. I was setting up a framework for the argument. And then you act like fucking children.
Oh my God.
Fucking children.
God.
Just because you think you're getting
Why are
impatient.
Thunder guy, why are laws important?
Right? Okay. So if you were in my house, okay, and I told you, don't do certain things, I don't really appreciate it. Why would you listen to me? Why is it important for you to listen to me?
It's not? I don't know. Like,
How would
You'll
you,
kick me out otherwise.
right?
Sure.
How do you think? I don't know. Maybe you don't believe the laws actually are necessary. I can't tell. I don't know.
I don't think they're inherently
But the thing
necessary.
is-
They're bad laws, QED.
how would you think
Well,
a
we all
society
agree
would
there's
function
bad
without
laws.
any laws at all?
Do we? I don't know. Like you're imposing a completely hyperbolic universe.
No, if you don't know, why are you laughing like a moron when I'm trying to set up a framework for my argument?
This is a reason doesn't mean that it's uniformly applicable.
Hey, Bones, just cut the tone of your voice a little bit. I'm just going to tone police you a little bit, just so that we can get on a bit more amicably.
Hey, listen.
No, you sound really condescending, and I might agree with you, but just
Oh,
with the
God.
attitude.
After I just called it
See,
a
there is
child,
Ian,
I sound
laughing
condescending.
like a fucking moron.
Yeah, no,
I
I just
haven't
want to.
called you
I just want to have a
moron.
nice discussion here, and I don't want there to be a fight on my stream because, like,
I
it's
agree.
stream, so.
I'm
You
perfectly
don't want there to
fine.
be a fight on your stream.
And yet
I mean,
you're laughing at the idea of making yourself
I've got 20
understood.
subscribers.
No, I'm saying, why are laws important? If your response to that is say, well, if there were no laws, then
I
it would
wasn't
be
even
horrible,
allowed to
right?
make
Like,
my point.
The point is, how do you distinguish between a law that is justified and one that isn't? Bill of
How am I
Rights.
supposed to make a point if you interject
subjective.
and call it fluff?
That wasn't fluff. I'm asking an actual question.
How can you be on this stream and not be respectful to other people's opinions? I mean, just because he takes a long time to set something up, you know, that seems kind of arbitrary to me. I would think that you would want people to listen to you, right? Am I incorrect?
I would absolutely want people to. call
I'm
me
giving
out if I'm
Sandre the
spending a long
floor.
time saying
We're
nothing.
not talking about this anymore. Sandra, you have the floor. Sandra, you make your point. No interruptions from Bones. Bones, you've had a very long time to say your points.
Okay, so pardon the so-called fluff. Anyway, as I was trying to make it understood, I think that laws are important in society. The point I'm trying to make, though, okay? The point I'm trying to make, though, is not every law makes sense, and there comes a time when we have to be selective about the law. Just like laws are necessary for a society to function, it's also just as necessary for the public, as well as the officials in government, in the jurisdiction, to be aware of what laws actually make sense and what don't. There's actually a law. It's a so-called common law because it's on the books, but nobody enforces it for good reason. There's actually a law in a part of England where you can only eat kidney pie if you're a baron. Now, the problem I have with this mentality that, oh, every single law has to be enforced, well,
Should be enforced.
there's your example why that's simply not true.
They should be enforced.
Now,
It's
Eleanor,
like
I think
a
that's
law.
interrupting.
no, wait,
The
Denny,
floor was Sandra.
Denny.
I was responding. I was just pointing out that Eleanor was interrupting you, actually.
All right, well, Bones, okay. Was it really so hard to wait for me to make that point?
Yes.
Was it really fluff?
What point?
What point? You gave an example of a law that shouldn't be enforced and nothing else.
Well, that's the argument. It's
But you didn't identify the characteristics about that law, why it shouldn't be unenforced. You just took it on
so
faith that
you
all
don't
this
think it's
thing should be
inherently
unenforced.
you don't think it's inherently ridiculous that only barons can eat kidney pie?
Of course I do.
Then
But I
what's your
can expand
problem?
on why, right? That's the thing. I can explain why.
Okay,
the law
so
shouldn't
why
be
would it be
dictating
wrong of
to
me?
people what they're allowed to
Why
eat.
would it be wrong of me to prevent you from I don't know, eating kidney pie, but everyone else could?
It doesn't facilitate harm to others. None.
Are you serious? So the fact that
Yes.
you're prevented from doing something that doesn't harm anyone else, that's not inherently ridiculous.
No, I'm saying it shouldn't be against the law.
See,
right?
I don't see what your problem is.
No, you're not listening. Listen, okay? I think it should not be against the law to eat kidney pie or whatever, right? If you're not a baron, because it doesn't cause harm to others.
I think we'd all agree that that's an unjust law. I would want to change that. I hope everyone else here would want to change that.
But
If
the
someone's watching
conversation was
this,
whether you would
set
convict
up a
them and have someone
petition.
hung for eating kidney
Set up a
pie when you
petition.
weren't the baron.
I think, okay, I understand that there is a point at which you have to not enforce a law if it is too ridiculous. But
Yeah,
you should be able to understand.
Mycroft in the chat. Mycroft in the chat is asking, weren't we supposed to be talking about C16?
We were supposed to talk about laws, and that was what we had been talking about
We
for a
were,
very long
but,
time.
you know,
We talked about it for a
Potato
very long
won't
time.
control her stream.
I wanted to bring
I
up
wanna
this
know why
topic because I've
this
had it with
works.
a lot of people where they're like, someone, was found guilty of smoking pot, and they don't want that person to be punished for that. They want that person to be off the hook because they don't agree with that law. And I don't think that is a good way to run a system. That's
It's not
a
just
good way to
because
have a
you agree
law.
with the law. It's that the law is unjust.
Yeah, but the problem is then you're deciding that the law is unjust and that you don't want to enforce that, and that but you
Well,
could just
yes.
decide that for any law. That's my problem.
Yes,
You could just
and
decide.
Actually,
I don't believe
actually, in the
murder
United
is
States,
wrong.
we
I'm
have
on
the means to
jury.
determine whether or not a law is unjust.
Okay, so if you're in a
we're
jury,
little
you
bit
just
unique in
decide
that way.
that murderer didn't kill that person. That you don't agree with that law.
No one's slippery sloping it into goddamn murder. We
But
understand
but
that
I
if
want
you
to
murder
take-
somebody, that is literally you causing harm
so
to
there-
others.
there
And
is
for
the
that,
lie.
you might be justified to actually
Precisely
imprison
why
you.
I said the why is important,
That's okay.
right? Like that's the
Smoking
defining
weed?
characteristic. You can't
Yeah,
just say,
smoking
well,
weed,
then you're
not
advocating this
jail-worthy.
totally different thing that doesn't meet those caveats.
Also, if you get fined for smoking weed, who the hell are you paying this fine to? Why are you paying them a fine? Did you hurt somebody? Did you do something that someone else perceived wrong? Were you
Exactly.
indoctrinated?
Exactly.
Okay,
What the hell
but
is
you're
it?
saying that we shouldn't enforce that law because you don't agree with it. What other laws do you
No,
not
no,
agree with?
No. I
Do
am
you
not
not
a
want to
minister.
enforce?
Hold on.
Allow us to identify it as such.
I argue from a standpoint of, let's say, liberty and maybe constitutional freedoms.
Actually, I'm saying we shouldn't enforce that law because it doesn't pass constitutional muster.
Okay, wait. Don't go. God damn it. People are leaving.
So, yeah, someone was found guilty of breaking an unjust law. Therefore, it is just to punish them.
Yeah, that's just upholding the law.
Wait,
Wow, that was an instant.
But you're selectively
Okay.
you're
No,
you're
you
saying
can
that we
see
should selectively enforce law, and there's laws that
Yes,
you don't.
we
think
should
you
not
can
enforce laws which are unjust.
You should try and change
Right,
those.
because
but
I don't
think they
want
should still be
I don't want
enforced.
bad things to happen to good people. Personally,
I don't.
That's just
I don't
maybe
either. That's why I would want to change the laws.
Okay. So
No, you
if-
want to ensure it
I still
happens.
advocate.
So-
I still advocate changing the law. I would advocate changing the law before I advocate enforcing it. But I believe, on principle, all laws should be enforced.
I believe that all laws should be enforced, ideally. However, in order for that to be a feasible solution, we have to live in a world where the laws are at least close enough to being
Just.
just for that to be a viable option.
We can have that though.
And
Why not have
currently,
that?
we do not have that world, right? Currently,
Let's change
we
that.
do not have that world, and enforcing unjust laws is not going to help us get there.
I think.
and
I
this-
think
and
it
this bill
does speed
is
things up. I
completely
think it can
unjust.
speed things up.
completely.
Okay, maybe it speeds. Okay, so let's say it does speed things up, right? Well, okay, all you're ensuring that happens is the negative outcome that you're worried about this law causing happens definitely and sooner.
and more.
And again, you're advocating, you're saying that the dissent needs to be manufactured by making the thing worse than it is.
I'm not saying it needs to be. I
Well,
never
but-
said it needs to be.
Okay, but it'll speed it up.
Ought
Then
to be,
why would
then.
you advocate it? If it's not necessary, if it's not superior to alternatives, then why would you support that decision?
We're just going around in circles, and I'm just saying the same points again
If
and
it's
again.
not superior to alternatives, and it's not necessary in the sense that by consequence being superior to others, then why would you advocate it? Why would you say that's a good idea?
Well, if it's just something like a fine or something, that law is going to continue to exist until someone comes along that you don't like, that you want to charge with that. It's
Then it's
not.
not bad enough
It's
for people to
selective.
demand change. So why would we make it worse?
Well, I don't understand what you're advocating is that like I'm just advocating that police do their job and that the juries do their job. I'm not advocating that we become police. If we see it happen, we can totally ignore it. I'm not saying that we don't
you're
ignore it.
advocating that either. So we're
I'm
kind
not
of
saying that
jumping back and forth
you
here.
ring the phone on someone that's doing weed.
We're
I'm not
we're jumping
advocating
back
that.
and forth here between two things. Okay, I don't feel that unjust laws should be enforced. Right? You're saying that
Yeah,
they
you have
should be.
you have your opinion. I have mine. Okay,
Hold on, it's not an argument.
it is. It is an argument.
Then why bother having a stream?
What?
Well, if
People
that's
have
the
arguments on
response
stream all
to
the
a
time.
counterpoint, it's just like you have your opinion, I have mine. Then why bother having the stream?
Well, we've said our pieces. We've said our pieces. We're done. here.
Yeah, but do you have a response to the arguments presented?
I've given my responses a few times now. Mark, do you have something to say? Mark?
No, Eleanor, restating your position is not providing a response to a specific point. Those are two distinct things.
I've already given my responses to those specific points, though, and we're just going in circles.
You just
now.
restated your position, though.
But you didn't. Why do you support unjust laws being defended? Or being enforced, rather. Sorry.
Because I believe laws should be enforced because they're laws.
So,
see, this is you just keep restating your position. It's like, I believe
That
the
is-
laws
yes,
because they
that
should be
is
enforced.
my
Because they're laws.
to
Because they
your point. That is, I've already stated this
That
so
is
many
not a
times
response.
now. If
No,
you
yes,
decide
you're saying
you
it over
don't
and over
agree
again.
with laws and you don't want them enforced, you're taking the law into your own hands, and that to me is a very dangerous position to have.
why?
Mark, are you
Why?
there?
Why?
Mitch, are you there? I'm done with this conversation. I'm so sick of going in circles. No one else wants to listen to this. You two can go and on your own stream and spurg out if you want to. I would rather move on. I would rather move on.
What?
Danny and Bones every Saturday.
Danny Bones. Danny and the Rabbit.
Danny and the
Is
Rabbit. That's
Loki
much
and
better.
Mitch there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Every Saturday, this is happening.
Okay. Well,
So,
another thing we could talk about then is how the system should be run. Something that I was talking about another time recently is about prisons, if they should be private or not. Now, I'm totally against the idea of private prisons.
why?
Okay, good. I can wait. Why? Because
Okay.
prisons are just okay. Why are the taxpayers paying $60,000 to $80,000 a year to keep prisoners healthy and fed?
What is? Wait. So, hang on. Let me make sure I understand this. You're saying that prisons should never be privatized because taxes shouldn't pay for prisons?
No. Prisons
not.
should be privatized.
Well, should be. I thought Eleanor said that they shouldn't be, and that you agreed.
Eleanor's against it. I'm for it.
Oh, you're for
Wait.
it. Oh,
But
okay.
again,
So wait, Eleanor.
lots of
Sorry,
nuance
Eleanor.
there.
Did you not?
Lots of nuance.
Sorry, am I mistaken? Did Eleanor not say that she's not necessarily against private prisons?
I am against private prisons.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So I heard that
I'm
correctly.
sorry. I heard
thought,
it incorrectly.
what I misheard was I thought that was it Mitch? You were mentioning that you were in favor. I
No,
still haven't
Loki.
recognized your voices.
I
yet.
mentioned
Loki.
nothing.
Was it Mitch or Loki?
Loki.
Oh, Loki. Sorry, I didn't mean to confuse you guys. So Loki is in favor of privatization of prisons.
Okay. Not fully privatization, but maybe bring back some of that work camp prison thing. I just clearly don't understand why prisons have become just socialist havens where you can just sit around and have your food and everything, food and shelter brought to you.
Well, so
I
two
don't
arguments.
think prisons are pleasant places to be.
That depends on who you talk to.
Response to
Some
that.
people feel at home.
Well, yeah. One, I wouldn't say that prison is a really great place. But that's fine.
Nor
You
should
can
you be
say
in a
that,
great place if
that
you
some people
murdered or
disagree.
raped
That's
somebody.
fine. But the other aspect is I wouldn't want prisons to be. I wouldn't want there to be an economic incentive to imprison more people. I want imprisonment to be something that we don't want to do, but we have to.
But right now, it's an economic incentive for some people to go to prison because it's easier than being
that
out.
concerns me less, right? I mean, there's technically always an economic incentive to break the law, right? Because on a personal level, because you just get money, right? Stealing money is very economically savvy if there's no punishment for it, right?
Yes, and
But I
go
don't
to
want the
jail,
state
sit
to have a
around.
reason to imprison people outside of necessity.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with
Agreed.
that. I think that's a very dangerous thing to have people putting the law into their own hands. So anyone could start up their own private prison. If you had restrictions like that, where anyone could set up their own private prisons and start imprisoning whoever they like, you have a serious problem. So we have to stop that. Like
No.
immediately,
People
Immediately
can't
you have to
imprison,
have it heavily-
anyone they like.
Listen. Immediately, you have to have it heavily regulated, right? You
I
have
would
to have
disagree.
a lot of regulations on it, and at that point, you're basically doing the same thing that the government is doing. So that's
So
the
I'm
point
not
of
really
it.
convinced that you would. I'm not convinced that private prisons wouldn't work, but if you did do it, you should entirely privatize them and also privatize law enforcement and courts.
Whoa. Yeah, that's a serious problem.
Why?
That's a serious problem.
So I'm not
now
sure
you're setting
that
up,
I'd actually
okay,
be in
imagine
favor of
Muslims.
this.
Muslims are setting up their Sharia courts. They're enforcing that.
Yes.
You drink alcohol and now you're going to prison, and this is the US. That's the future if you have these private prisons. That could happen.
So you think that the people who would win would be the people with the worst laws? The market would select the worst laws. Is that what
there
you're
would
saying?
be a market for it, so it exists. It doesn't necessarily need the best to have the market for that. There
but
could be
I
a market
would
for that.
live. I would live somewhere, and I would pay my. It would probably be done through insurance agencies. I'd have my insurance agency, and they would be. Private protection agencies is the simplest way to put it. Right?
No.
My private protection agency would protect me.
Militias instead of a police system?
I'm not necessarily advocating for it, but I think it's a very interesting idea.
My police
I think it's a very
would
interesting
only
idea.
enforce certain things, and their police system would enforce their laws. So that's literally saying I would hire my own militia to protect me from other people, and other people would hire their own militia to protect me from other people in the United States of America. Instead of having one justice system, you now have several justice systems, and then people are living however they want underneath their own laws on their own property.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you officially go in? Okay, I had this exact conversation with somebody earlier this week. So what happens when I take my private militia and come onto your land and just kill your private militia and take over your land? Do I now own your land?
Well, I mean, you probably do, yeah. But
okay,
I don't
so
think
you just want to get rid of government and bring up anarcho-capitalistic things.
Yeah,
is that what
that's no. So I'm not again. I'm not necessarily advocating for this. I think it's an interesting thought experiment. But yeah, for the sake of argument, that's what I'm advocating. I don't believe that it's necessarily the case that the private militia that goes around conquering, right?
No, it's not the private militia. It's the people who. Are private
well, if your private militia comes and attacks my private militia, right? That's actually costly for both of our private militias. The private militias who are going to do better are the ones that cooperate with other private militias. Cooperation tends to be more profitable than conflict.
Prince, then you don't care. You just show up and you buy an army, and they already own armies. Now they just buy bigger armies, and they're legal to station their army in your country. Now they're staging an army.
No, it's not legal. It's not legal because the private militias. No, it isn't. It's against our laws, the ones we paid for.
But you just said there are no laws because now you make up your own laws. Because you just said you have your own system with your own laws, and then your private militia enforces those laws. And then, now I show up and I have my private militia and my insurance system, and my laws are enforced.
Yeah, if you show up with that, and you start breaking our laws in our property, in our area, then you die, or you go to jail, or whatever.
No, my militia is bigger and better armed, and I just destroy the militia. I just wipe it out.
Why would it be bigger and better armed? I don't think the Saudi prince would have the biggest militia in the world.
No,
Saudi prince doesn't have the most money. The people who have the most money are like rich banker Jews.
The people with all the money already have private militias.
Yeah,
sure. They already own like people already have Blackwater.
The richest people are all in the US, so I don't think Sharia law would be enforced. That mostly the general beliefs of the people who live in the US would be enforced in the US because that's the laws they pay for.
But what's this?
Danny pointed out that
what's to stop a Korean, it's not Korean, a fucking Sharia court being set up in these countries, competing with other ones, or not even competing at all, just existing on their own and being set up and enforced within the Muslim communities. Because
you can absolutely try to compete, but I don't think it would be very popular.
It can exist.
It can try to. I don't think it will succeed in the market. You could make
it still exist within some groups. It doesn't need to be very profitable.
It does need to be profitable. It absolutely does. That's how capitalism works.
It doesn't need to be very profitable. If it has any profit, it can still continue.
It can, but it won't be doing very well.
Against an alternative.
And here's the thing: you can make profit from the people that you're arresting by forcing them to do labor. So you arrest someone for drinking, and suddenly you're making quite a big profit off it, even if it's not very popular.
What if those
Also,
people
like-
are already subscribed to their own militia, right? They're already paying for their own militia.
Right,
and
that's
you're-
where our
you've got your
militia's
little
still fighting. I mean,
Well, I'm
militia's
sure
still
the
fighting.
private militia
wait,
is
hold up.
much stronger
Let's go through it
than...
step by step. Let's go through it step by step. So
Okay.
you've got your Sharia law court, right? It is very
Mhm.
unpopular and is making very little profit. I have my massively...
Or it's very popular and making a
If it's-
huge
why would
profit.
It won't be. Why would it be popular in the US?
Because it could be popular within the percentage of Muslims that are there.
There's
So
a
it'd be really
tiny
popular.
percentage, and they're not very rich.
Things.
But like, what's the
So
stop?
there's a tiny percentage of Muslims in the US, and they aren't very rich. By far, the most powerful militias would be owned by liberals and conservatives.
Okay, but what about
Those
your
sorts of
average person? Your
That's
average person.
They'll buy subscription.
Would they have a militia that is able to compete with someone with this really
You'd buy a
big militia
subscription.
that makes a bunch of
Yes.
money from? Okay,
Yeah, absolutely. They'd buy a subscription.
that's not realistic.
What do you
But, like,
mean?
what's-
It's not realistic. That's how the rest of capitalism works.
But also, like, what's the
As
stop?
an individual, you don't buy the data centers that Google makes. Right.
Yeah,
Well,
you
but
don't
what-
you don't buy all of the factories that produce your all of your goods. You just buy
Your
the
average
individual
person
one.
isn't going to be able to afford that. They get arrested.
What do
They
you
get
not-
turned
why
into
not?
slave
That's the
labor.
point.
It's essentially slave labor at that point.
No,
The
no, it's
average
not.
person
It's
can't
pay-
afford a
it's
data center.
paying
That doesn't
people
mean they
for their
don't
labor.
serve
Look,
like
Okay, guys,
Google.
guys,
Look,
guys.
Eleanor, you don't have to pay for
Say
all of
goodbye.
the factories that produce everything that you make. The infrastructure required for such a service is not required. Only some tiny percentage of that is required. And, for example, you look at the massive cost of building your car and filling it with petrol. That is enormous. No one could ever afford that, you might say, if that was provided by the government. But then, of course, you don't need to afford all of that. You just need to pay them a little bit, and they will get a little bit from everyone because they'll sell it to everyone.
Hey, guys, I'm taking off. It was fun. I
Thanks,
hope to
Chris.
argue with you guys once again, especially about this anarcho-capitalist thing. This has been on my mind for quite a while. I'd love to have like a whole, just a thing just about anarcho-capitalism.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So, have I got you on Twitter, by the way?
Me on Twitter? I don't know. I'll tweet at you and see if
Okay.
see if you have it. All right.
Sweet.
Take care.
But like, the problem I have with all that is like, what's not to stop? Oh, hi, by the way. What's not to stop other countries? Because the US is now this fucking weird system where you own your private militias of like sending money in or like paying people that they know are going to be like loyal to their cause, giving them money and then having their own militia. Like I think this is an inherent, like your argument falls down there because people do have other interests. I would love to see America fall under some form of Sharia law, and the people in Saudi Arabia have a shit ton of money and they'd be pretty interested in ensuring that happened.
But they don't have anywhere near as much money as the Americans.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree with that. I think there's huge reserves that, like,
What?
the Saudi Arabia can just stop selling oil to them and be like, just like,
No,
stop
they
enforcing
couldn't.
militia. They could legally. They
Well,
could. They
first of all,
just,
America has plenty of oil, and I mean, it's America isn't drilling its own oil a lot of the time because it's in like national reserved areas, like parks and shit. They're like national parks, I think they call them, even when it's at sea. Also, once they get rid of that, there's an enormous amount in Canada. Like most, like
Hang
the
on,
US, I believe.
so annex Canada.
We're going way farther than we need to. America's already bigger than the Middle East.
Yeah, it's, the American economy is the biggest in the world.
Right,
No
so
one is as rich as
why would that change if you swapped tax revenue to personal revenue? There would still be more money in America.
And actually, America's doing the Middle East a favor by buying their oil. That's how they have any money at all. You know, if they say, well, they'll stop selling oil, all right? Well, the Middle East is fucked then. They don't have enough money for food. let
Well,
alone militia.
how does this relate? I'm kind of confused. How you
Well,
got...
Saudi Arabia
no.
as a foreign nation wouldn't be able to take over the U.S. even if it was.
I'm not saying Saudi Arabia would take over.
whatever.
I'm saying the Muslim groups
East.
within the US would set up their own prison system.
They're
would
even less
profit off-
capable.
They're still capable. That's
They're
what I'm
less
saying.
capable than a foreign government.
But they don't need to be as capable as a foreign government.
So if the foreign government would fail in this task, why would a group that's less capable succeed?
You're saying that it would be perfectly legal. You're allowing them to make a private prison where they could arrest
No.
people.
No, that's not at all what I'm saying or what Danny's saying.
What is he saying then?
We're saying that
Because
would
he's
be
advocating for
violating
private prisons.
laws
What's-
that people voluntarily enter.
What?
So the people would pay into a private militia that would defend their rights when these, extremist minority of U.S. nationals or whatever decide to try and
It
imprison
could be
them.
too late by the time they hire them, or what? They would hire them at all times, and most people
Yeah.
couldn't afford that.
Yeah, kind of like you do with the
Like-
police.
And
Like
their
you hire-
militia
like-
won't be able to compete with a bigger militia
Why do you-
involving far more people who set up a system. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, right. And who's going to have the biggest, most powerful militia? The richest people. And where are the richest people? America. What do they believe? Not Sharia.
Right, but what about the poor people within America, the people on the streets? What's to stop them being locked up by these private Sharia prisons?
What would be the profit motive?
Slave labor.
Okay, you could if you do it like that. I'm not entirely sure what the workaround for that is actually, but in general, in general, cooperation is more profitable than force, right? Additionally, I don't think that. I mean,
It's
you know,
just
they're
one
gonna
of those
wanna
things
live
that it
in-
wouldn't work. Like, it's just one of those things that can't be private. You can't privatize militia,
Yeah, no,
armies, prisons. It just doesn't work.
I actually don't have to look at that one. I'm not, like I said, I'm not actually in favor of it. I'm just interested in, and most of the arguments against it don't work, which is why I find it fascinating. Most of the arguments against that private militia thing don't function. Like the initial one that occurs to everyone is that Sharia thing. What about the Sharia courts and all that stuff? That they would fail. They'd lose in the free market. But
They wouldn't be as
so
good, but
just
they could still
the
exist.
slave labor thing.
They could still
But,
exist because they're making a
seems
profit out
more
of nothing.
profitable. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think the Sharia ones would do very well. I think that they would fail to. I mean, if you want Sharia to be enforced, then you can't do it just by everyone being a slave of your giant, powerful militia.
See what
You have to do it by actually getting people to buy into your Sharia system, and it's not going to function in the free market.
People buy into Sharia all the time.
Not really. More people deconvert from Islam than convert to it.
Yeah. People
And in
still convert
addition,
to it, though.
Islam needs to carry the
Yeah,
threat of
but-
death to subsist.
Exactly.
What's
If
to
it's super
stop
popular,
them
they wouldn't kill
involving people who aren't following Sharia, enforcing Sharia on people who aren't Muslims? These private militia that people can't afford to have at all times?
Okay, they totally can. That's completely wrong. I mean, obviously they
At
could.
all time.
Yeah.
And their
Absolutely.
private militia be with
Could you
the
afford
Sharia law.
to have?
Could I
have
afford to
their
have a private
If
militia
it's-
that could
hold up.
compete
You're
with private
misunderstanding
prisons?
words. You've got a problem with your wording here. So
Okay.
private militia doesn't mean their personal militia, their personal private militia. Private is in the sense of not government owned, privatized. You can't afford a hospital, but you can afford health insurance. You can't afford a militia, but you can afford militia insurance.
Okay, even still, a small militia, a small private militia wouldn't be able to,
Wouldn't be
like,
small, it would be enormous, like McDonald's.
The most competitive one would be huge.
it could be smaller and it would be way
Like
more
the Walmart
expensive.
militias.
Oh,
No,
we could
you'd
all
go-
just afford
no.
to have a militia. Okay.
Yeah, we could absolutely all afford it. The same way as we can all afford to have a giant factory producing our computers, right? We can all afford to do that. We can all afford to get a giant factory to ship materials around the world after mining it and send us a computer, right? That they've built.
Definitely can all afford using Google because it's free.
Right.
And the
not the
infrastructure
same.
required for Google to
It's
operate.
not,
absolutely
it's
the
not
same.
the
What's the
same.
difference?
But it is the same.
What is the difference?
You're asking for people, physical people, to be able to protect you from other people who are trying who could try to arrest you for a crime that you believe is unjust and you don't want enforced. And
I
you
totally
think
get
that
what
you'd be able to afford and prevent this from happening. I don't think it's realistic enough that you could do that.
You're just claiming it's not realistic. But
The minute you start allowing I mean, I hope if you're arguing for these private prisons, you're going to say that there should be regulation, because otherwise
no regulation. That's the entire
see,
point.
that's the entire point of why it wouldn't work. If there's no regulation, they can set up their own militia, right? Specifically with the goal to target you, and you're
Who's
not going to
that?
have the money. You're not going to be prepared. You like at all times to prevent
Who'd
that
pay
from
for that?
happening.
Yes,
So it
I
can happen.
absolutely will
So
be.
innocent people.
The same way as no. What do you mean? Why won't I be prepared at all times? I'll just pay my subscription fee. When is the time when I won't? Same as people buying health insurance. When is the time that you don't have health
If
insurance?
you make it profitable
How many
to
people don't
arrest,
have health insurance?
they would do it all the time.
We don't have health insurance,
I
sorry.
assume a lot of people don't.
Right.
Have
No,
health
it's profitable
what
to
they're saying,
though.
It's like
Right,
It's
because
profitable
same
to
way-
provide people what they want, and people would want to have
Yeah.
an effective militia.
So
It's the same way that
health
we pay
insurance
tax
is
to-
interesting because health insurance does have a similar effect, but it's perhaps less noticeable, right? So advancements in medical aid or whatnot, even the very poor still benefit from that, right? It's sort of the same thing as the Google element, right? Like with respect to a private militia or whatnot, there may be people in a particular area who don't pay the subscription or whatnot, but it would still be in the security firm's best interest to keep them safe anyway because they're protecting the entire area.
But also, like, it's you already pay tax. Like, I think I didn't get the argument at first, but now I understand it. Basically, what you're paying a subscription to be protected by this militia. So basically, it's similar to the way you pay tax for police
Right.
officers and the army. Basically, that's what you're saying. That's what
Similar,
you're
right.
saying.
So you're saying
Yeah,
it's the same
that's-
thing.
Well,
No,
except
but
it's voluntary.
privatized.
Fundamentally
Yeah, it's
identical.
voluntary. Yeah, you choose
And
to opt in.
that's still, I don't know why I didn't think of that before, Eleanor. That's why we know for a fact we can afford it, because we currently do. With taxes.
You're
It would cost less if a private industry did it, not more.
Yeah, like you can opt into what you believe in. So if one group has a certain set of laws, you can decide that's better than, let's say, someone who decides the Sharia law. So you'd pay for the group that's most likely to you. Therefore, Sharia laws wouldn't really work because people would be like, fuck that shit, and just go with
I
like.
want beer.
it would still exist though, because some people would still pay for that, so that would still exist. Like a lot of the other shit
probably.
things.
But the thing is,
and
Eleanor,
then they
it
can
may
make a
exist.
profit from
Hang on.
arresting you.
Hang on.
So they
It
can
may
come,
exist.
break
They
the
cannot make a
law.
profit off harassing
Hang on.
me,
So, hold on,
because
hold on.
harassing me is against my laws where I am.
Hang on. The point is, it may exist.
So you
but it
opt
wouldn't
into certain
it wouldn't be
laws.
successful enough to infringe upon others. Right? It would only be able to exist on a voluntary basis for people who want to be ruled under Sharia law.
Okay.
And if that's what they want, fine. Or not.
Yes. I think people should be able to live under Sharia law if they want to. I just think they shouldn't want to.
Right.
Yeah. But still, private prisons are just a bad idea.
Yeah, ultimately, though, I think the reason this sort of Ancapistan private prisons wouldn't work, aside from the possible slavery thing, like that might actually be more profitable than providing a good service, just enslaving everyone. I'm not sure. I'd have to think about the economics. But the other thing is conquering warlords. Yeah, I mean, it might be more. It is. The free market will favor over conquering because it is more profitable. But that requires that people are rational all the time and don't just all galvanize behind some nation state anyway, and then that nation state goes around conquering, and they and they have the benefit of profit as well as the benefit of force. So I don't think it would work. I think that you just end up with a state anyway, but it's interesting to think about.
Definitely it's interesting to think about. But yeah, essentially you always get back to the state idea.
Right.
What happens? It's always going to be the state that's going to be. I think this group of cooperating people who eventually fall under these same sets of laws. So basically, eventually, one militia will just become essentially the United States again, just under maybe a different set of laws.
And then it would decide that it's no longer voluntary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No.
I don't think anyone knows to say that. We're just like, yeah, we all agree. Cool.
Mitch, are you still there?
Oh yeah.
What are you doing?
Waiting.
Hello?
He's jerking it.
Waiting?
I'm waiting.
Waiting for your impending doom? Impending
Waiting
demise?
for what?
Your
Not
impending
exactly.
demise?
Waiting for people to shut up long enough so I can get a fucking word in edgewise.
No, that feels.
Yeah, it gets it can get heated in here. A lot of opinionated people.
Because people keep missing obvious things, and it's kind of aggravating. Like
what?
back on the subject of enforcing all laws on the books, needing to remove them. Well, what happens? I'll use the blasphemy law, or no, better yet, the hanging someone who speaks ill of the Queen. That's actually a really good example. The reason laws like that are kept on the books are because at some point they're going to become politically expedient. Someone in power who decides, okay, now we can use this old defunct irrational law to hang our adversaries. It basically creates a state where you have your political prisoners and your political executions. That's why laws need to be gone through on a regular basis and completely eliminated when they no longer apply.
I think we can all agree with that, and I think we can all agree that that would be a better option than to hang
because
people
that's what power does. You know, people get in power and it becomes a self-feeding mechanism, and that's all they want out of it.
Yeah.
I don't think that was a point of contention, though, right? Like, no one's saying that the laws all should exist.
Well, you were kind of saying that because you were saying, well, if it's not a problem, who cares if it exists?
No, that's not what I said. I said
no. If it's not a problem, then it's not worth punishing someone over. If it's not a problem, it's not worth punishing someone over.
Specifically for the reasons he just gave. It can be selectively applied for political leverage. I gave that as an example specifically.
I must have missed it while someone was
uploaded. You can go back and listen.
Yeah, but the thing is, in the future date, when it is being used for political expediency to try to oppress the people, which is what that one's intended for, actually.
It should be gotten rid of before that happens. That's my concern. And that should be everyone's concern.
I would agree, but let's say that we don't get rid of it. In the future, when it is used for political expediency, you want me on your jury, not Eleanor.
Clearly.
Well, no, I think if there's a problem if a ruler becomes totalitarian and starts to kill their own people, that would be a point at which I would try to fight against the system. When I would take the law into my own hands if it becomes too big of a problem. There is a point at which we need to step up against the law. I just don't want it to be now. I don't want people to start enforcing the law selectively and people just not enforcing any laws that they see fit and things like that. They're my concerns.
Well, no, that's just it. In America, anyway,
but
we
Eleanor,
have the Bill of Rights.
If that were the case, then it would become a tyrannical state. So you're saying that that's like it's self-contradictory, right? You're saying that we shouldn't enforce the laws arbitrarily until the state becomes despotic, but if you enforced all the laws, it would become despotic.
Well, see, and that's where I'm going.
Is that acknowledged?
What are you saying?
I'm going to a place where we head that off. You know, we have the Bill of Rights, and this is one of the cool things about the U.S. We have the Bill of Rights, and when the laws do not line up with the restrictions on government within the Bill of Rights, those laws have to go.
I agree, obviously, but I was sort of responding to that point, though, where the statement was...
I know what you're getting at with Eleanor.
Well, we were...
I'm just
the argument is that we should enforce all the laws up until
point of if not now, when. I don't think we can wait for someone to become the tyrant.
But by that
we have to do
definition,
it
I agree
now.
because of our constitution, which ties in church and state, we can't actually remove the blasphemy laws because it's directly linked to our constitution or our Bill of Rights, as you like to call it. Like in America, our constitution directly has a link between the state and church, so therefore movements like the blasphemy law just wouldn't work under that system here. I can see where you're coming from, but not all
under the same parameters. You would have to use a different set of parameters in order to rectify that.
Yeah, the problem is that our most Supreme Courts go by the Constitution, so you won't be able to remove that law under the Constitution unless the Constitution was changed. which means that you'd have to find some way. So basically, something like the Stephen Fry thing brings it up. I can get what Alan are saying in terms of enforcing laws. It's that you bring up the stupid ones, so then people can go, well, fuck this shit, change it, and then it gets changed. Like I can also understand.
If it's like a fine or something.
Yeah, no, I can see the other side as well. And I'm not saying like no, fuck that.
Even if it's a fine, because even here in the States, the fines are being used simply as a means for the state to generate revenue.
Yeah.
So wait,
separate problem.
Matuf, sorry, but are you American?
No, I'm Irish.
Right, because you were saying, I could have sworn I heard you talking about America as we.
No, I was talking about the Constitution. I always say, like, debater thing, it's we as the thing we talk about the Constitution. But no, like, in Ireland, like, the blasphemy laws are being now, like, talked about being removed because they were brought up in a case, because the Gardaí, or our police, the Gardaí, our police, investigated Stephen Fry. They had to because there's a complaint, and that's why it's being brought up. So I can see where Eleanor is coming from, and that all laws should be enforced and not ignored. But at the same time, there is an argument made, too, about if you're on the jury and it gets that far, you should probably weigh it up and go, is this actually a thing we should be convicting on, and use your best moral judgment? Because at the end of the day, a jury is your own peers, and they should also be applying their moral standards as well as the law. Because police officers also apply their experience and their moral code to the law. They don't always enforce the law fully because they realize that's probably not the best thing to do.
Right.
Right.
I kind of advocate as the best way of ensuring a safe society isn't actually the law, it's the culture. I do advocate for there being a legal structure that's going to back that up, but I'd rather advocate, try to improve the culture of the place that I'm in, so that people will have a good idea of what's right and wrong. And then I do absolutely think that them selectively enforcing the laws would be fine.
Well, each case does need to be judged on an individual basis.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's right. That's right from that first interaction with the police. It has to be judged on an individual basis.
So we all agree that the law should not be always enforced, irrespective of context.
I would say they would up to a certain point. So I probably advocate they be enforced more than most people here. But I do think there comes a point where we shouldn't enforce the law.
Okay, so what?
I think that before enforcing the law, we should try and change the law if it's unjust. If someone doesn't get caught, for example.
What threshold?
We all agree with that. But so really, we're all just disagreeing about where we draw our line.
Yeah.
Kind of. We're arguing over the degrees, basically.
Yeah.
Because I mean, all of you are going to say that in if you bring it to an extreme case like with murder, all of you are going to agree that that person committed the crime regardless of your feelings, and you're going to have to punish that person for that crime.
Well, that's because
that depends on if it's murder, manslaughter, or homicide.
And also, it's like there's a difference between something like murder, manslaughter, or homicide, whatever. If you kill someone, there's a big difference between that because you're directly infringing on someone else's rights, or like taking a drug where the only person you're infringing upon is yourself.
What if you're
like,
selling drugs to someone though?
That's fine.
Well, if you're selling drugs.
So now we're here. Now we're here talking about lines. What lines we think are okay and what lines we think aren't okay.
Yeah. That's
Again, every time
I think it's a dodgy game to play the line with the law. I think the laws.
Every time this stuff comes up, I default to the Constitution of the United States because I mean that's what applies to me.
What does it say? What does it say about
the Constitution? The Constitution does not give the government authority to determine what you can and cannot or use to wipe your ass, as long as you're not infringing on someone else's rights.
So you are following a law, but it's a specific law. It's not.
But does the Constitution say anything about selling drugs to other people?
No. It's a
the Constitution.
That would actually
does,
fall under
if I'm
the
not
right
mistaken,
to
outline a system of laws, right? Like that. It
does.
Outlines the way that laws can be passed. So therefore, isn't in a way the Constitution supporting any law that's passed unless that law is unconstitutional?
Yeah,
say again.
The Constitution's work.
Well, what you're saying there is that some laws are unlawful, so that if by not enforcing those laws, you're not, you are still enforcing the law, but you're not enforcing laws that that are unlawful, that are unconstitutional. That
Right.
it's kind of
Like, for
it's kind
example,
of a
we have the right to enter into contracts and negotiations with each other.
How
You
can
know,
a
and
law
that's-
be
that's-
unlawful?
What about prostitution? If I agreed to sleep with
There's
you for
nothing in the
money?
Constitution about it. People have the right to peaceably assemble. People have the right to exchange goods for services.
Sorry, peacefully assemble like being a prostitute. That sounds brilliant.
It's an interesting.
Here, so
People have the
let's
right
touch
to
on that
exchange
then.
gender fluids.
Hang on. So let's touch on that. So if
Have you-
the Constitution says that people have the right to peacefully assemble and they're allowed to exchange goods and services, could you hire a hitman?
No, because then that would the
That would
nature of
infringe
the
on
job
someone
that
else's.
the nature of the
Yeah.
service that the hitman is to perform is to commit a murder, and that
Yeah,
infringes
that's
on
un-
someone's rights.
Yeah, it's,
Right.
That's
So you
not-
can't.
What if you hire?
you
What if you
can
hire him to kill yourself?
purchase of something that infringes on someone's
that,
rights?
that's probably
Wait, no bones. So if you have if you're going to draw out this distinction for hitman, right, that's very different from drawing out a distinction for a drug crime, right? Because the hitman is not saying that you can't purchase the services of a hitman per se. It's just you can't take action that is going to intentionally cause someone's death, right? It's not illegal for you to fire a gun, but it is if that's going to fire the bullet into someone's head.
Right.
And not because you're firing the gun, not because you're
No,
purchasing
it
the services, but because it's going to infringe on
illegal
someone's
if you're
rights.
firing. It's illegal if you're firing the bullet into somebody's head when they're not a threat to you.
Right, yeah. To be more
Sure.
specific, yes.
To be specific, yes.
Right. No, that sounds fine. I'm not advocating anything here. I'm taking sort of a inquisitive approach with respect to it. I want to see where the breaking points are, because I
Well,
actually
like,
am
get-
interested in where the lines are and where those distinctions are relevant.
I think
Right.
though, getting back to the drug dealer point, like someone selling drugs, we don't know whether or not they could or could not harm another person. Like if the drugs are like perfectly pure and do as described, then that's probably that's a risk, right? Because it's most likely going to be cut with something like another drug that could essentially lead to someone's death because they have a bad reaction because they take something they didn't expect to happen. So I think you have to err on the side of caution there. Like the thing of the state is to try and protect its.
Well, we do err on the
citizens
side
and
of
the right
caution with the
citizens.
concept. We actually do err on the side of caution with the concept of informed consent. Now, let's say,
agree with
for
that.
example, that Martouf is selling me cocaine. Okay, by my definition of what's perfectly legal and fine and good according to the Bill of Rights, that's fine. I use the cocaine. That's fine. Under the influence of the cocaine, I'm irresponsible and I run over it's no longer fine. That doesn't mean that Martouf is guilty of.
Sold you the cocaine.
Martouf isn't guilty. I am.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
I should be charged with either manslaughter or second degree murder. Manslaughter, actually.
Oh, our host has left.
Go back. See?
There she is. The problem there is though
Sorry.
is that like I agree under those circumstances, assuming the cocaine is perfectly fine and you kill someone in a car accident, that's your fault. But what if there was something
Yes.
in the cocaine that made you more likely to do that? Like where do we draw the line there? And that's why selling drugs is illegal.
Well,
and
see,
probably
that's.
should be illegal in that state.
Oh, yes.
I would
The
argue
only
that-
difference between
Sorry,
the only
I
difference
kinda wanna
between
address that.
selling drugs being illegal and selling alcohol being illegal is that alcohol is with alcohol, you're dealing with a storefront, you're dealing with a quality control process. There are things in place to make sure that it's not tainted. If the drugs were legalized, those same types of
Yes.
things would be in play.
More, I think the
Drugs being
point
legal.
that's at play here is sort of where do we draw a line of causal influence, right?
Basically, that's what it
Let's
sounds
say you
like
had
to
a
me.
mind control drug or something, right? And or a drug that just for some reason when they took it, it just compelled them to murder people, right? Like a murder drug. I don't know. Going in a sci-fi world here.
There's obviously some sort of spectrum of causality there, and I would say that arguably we should err sort of on the low end of that, where we need to be very, very certain that there is a causal relationship between the two things.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's
so even
that's
if
what
it's like a 50-50 split, I wouldn't say that that's enough. I think we have to be like almost certain that this thing causes that outcome.
No, I don't think so. I think that like things like people taking drugs themselves, that should not be criminalized. But when you've got people selling drugs that could essentially kill people, and have been proven, like not all drugs, most drugs do not kill people, but some drugs, because they're sold illegally, are cut with something that does kill someone, right? You can't justify any deaths, and it's the role of the state to protect the right of its citizens. And if it can ensure that someone selling drugs is every time going to ensure that person survives or taking the drug, then it has to be legal because that's the state's role.
Okay, so hang on, just make sure I understand this. So we're not talking about a third party here. We're not talking about a murder drug, right? We're talking about a drug that like is poison that will kill you.
Yeah,
something
basically.
tainted.
I think that's predicated on informed consent. If the person knows that it's like deadly and has a very high likelihood of killing them, and they still want to purchase the product, then that's fine, as far as I'm concerned.
No, but they obviously wouldn't know that it was cut with something that may kill it. Like, for instance, something
They
well,
buy
then
it
you're
from
looking
someone
at
and they're selling
Yeah.
it
They're
onto someone else.
Right? If they enter
you're
into
looking at a
contract
different kind of law.
that leads to someone's death, then yeah, I advocate holding that person accountable. 100%.
There we're looking
yeah,
at
like, obviously-
oh, help me out. What's the word? It's when you like take alcohol for example. If something negligence, there we go. There you're looking at a kind of negligence.
Sure.
And if the negligence results in somebody's death, then
So, but here's a question.
the penalties will be pretty steep.
Here's a question though. What if the thing that they're taking has some sort of really bad effect? Could be death, could be anything else. Maybe it makes them grow a third arm. But they don't know, and there's no reasonable sort of certainty onto the person selling it knowing that that's an effect. Like I'm going into sort of pharmaceuticals here.
Like if like say for example, I buy one of the next wonder drugs that a pharmaceutical company
Yeah,
puts out.
and it just so happens that that drug like
And they don't realize yet that one of the side effects is an exploding testicle or something.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, then
no, like,
they were negligent in their testing, and I have legal grounds to launch a lawsuit.
But what threshold is that, right? 'Cause obviously, knowing the causal impact of a drug is going to vary, right? Sometimes you're going to be really sure of the outcomes, and sometimes you're going to be really not sure. So, sort of, which end of that spectrum should we err on?
We should always err on the side that protects people most. There's a reason that making liquor by yourself and selling it, like, you know, moonshine or that's illegal because that can lead to problems, whereas actually selling alcohol in pubs and stuff isn't illegal. Like, I'm a big advocate that all drugs should be legal and sold by the state because they make a shit ton of money for the state.
Sold by the state.
Happy and safe. Yes,
If
I
I
agree.
I may be
sold by the state.
No private drug enterprises.
If I may be permitted
Let's
another
make sure that
example.
I got this correct. Like the government is going to grow and sell heroin to people.
If people want it, yeah.
I don't think the government should be involved.
So, what?
Sort of
This is a brand new. I've never heard this before. So
Oh
it's
no,
not
I mean
just
I don't think the government
It's not
should be
just that
involved
private
in the
industry.
growth and production and sale.
No, like no.
So-
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
don't
know,
think
but
the
my
government
first
should be
regulation-
involved with drugs.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait,
no.
Matuf seems to.
The government should not be
The
in
government
business for
drugging
itself.
people.
Guys,
Yeah,
let
like-
Matuf speak.
Yeah.
Right.
Let
so,
Matuf speak. He's the one with the
Like,
position here.
I think there's two ways you can go about it. I think the privatizing way is probably the better way, regulation from the state. But I also think it's not an inherently bad idea if the state sets up a private, if it's its own like shell company, such as it does with stuff like.
No. The government has enough jobs. Don't give the government more jobs. Give that to other people.
Okay,
That's
fine.
The other thing is you have to take consideration.
I have a valid reason for that.
Well, if you
Wait,
allow
Matuf,
the
what's your
government-
justification? Can I just
Well,
let
I
Matuf
thought
finish?
point out
What's your justification
Yeah,
for that?
what-
Why would it be good for the government to sell the drugs?
I think it allows for stricter regulation. It allows for the government to have complete control over every stage of the process of both designing or growing those drugs and then selling them. So ensures that like people can't overdose because maybe they have like regulations on how much you could buy per month or whatever through like some card system. It's a very vague topic. Like again, I'm not against privatizing either, just the
Hold
government
on.
having regulations.
Yeah, but I'm just dealing with this this idea that you've got here. So is one of the reasons that you're for this kind of legalization of drugs in order to stop the drug war, to stop the black markets that fund gangs and things?
Pretty much, yeah. I think.
Okay. I don't think that that would solve that problem. I think you would still have black markets because the government is going to be vastly inefficient compared to any private enterprise, as it always is, and so it's the government drugs will cost more. Unless you're going to get people subsidizing the drugs with tax dollars. And additionally, if you've got limits and regulations, right, to what people can buy, then there's going to be a black market for that anyway, getting people more of that drug.
People who just disregard the regulation and produce a product that way.
Yeah. So I don't think it'll stop the black market if you have the government selling it. And in fact, there's a thriving black market for cigarettes because of the enormous overtaxing and overregulation of cigarette companies. So I would say that I would not only legalize drugs, but I would probably not regulate them.
Well, no, obviously, yeah, okay. So I'm not.
I would regulate them. I would regulate them the same.
Sorry, I'm not fully against the idea of privatizing it either. Like having it like privatizing, people can have as much as they want, and again, because again, the onus is on them. If they overdose, that's their fault. It's not the company's fault, it's the state's fault because it's pure product that is fit for use, and it's their fault for being stupid, right? I do believe there has to be like regulation on like how pure these things have to be. And the big problem,
I don't know. I think that it depends. I think that if the company says, look, we're not sure how pure this is, like we'll guarantee that this is between 60 and 80% pure, right? We'll just guarantee that. And we'll also guarantee that the rest of it won't kill you, right? It just might not be perfectly pure.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to kill you though. Well, then if they're saying that and the person purchases it on that basis, if the product that they described is not what is provided, they have just stolen that person's money. It was an implicit contract where I give you this money, you now own this money if I own this product you've described. Well, I don't own this product you've described. You lied, and therefore you've stolen my money. My money's not given to you as part of the agreement. So therefore, if you just go back to this this privatized thing, and you're going to get the government to come in and say, or it has to be this amount pure, that doesn't seem, strictly speaking, necessary if the company can simply say, well, it's this pure, and the person knows how pure it is. Why does the government need to have a specific regulation relating to it?
It's not necessarily like the actual purity of the drug itself. It's just that it's not cut with anything that would be harmful to a person. So it could be between that amount. It could be between any amount that the thing decides. It can't, like, there can't be...
What if they disclose it, though? What if the company discloses that we're not sure what this is cut with, guys. I'm selling you this. I don't know what's in it. I'm pretty sure it's mostly heroin, but who knows? And someone buys it voluntarily on that basis.
A purchaser is looking at a risk-benefit analysis.
Right, exactly. And I think
that basically the purchaser has to say, and then, okay, this could be rat poison, so I'm not touching it.
And then it comes down
to laws against fraud, but I don't want a specific law saying you're not allowed to purchase this dodgy mystery product. If you want the dodgy mystery product, then you should be able to purchase it.
No, it's very simple. You regulate that industry the same way you regulate restaurants. You can't sell the chicken that's green and slimy.
Well, I think you should be able to sell the chicken that's green and slimy.
It goes first.
Yeah, it's like
I think we're missing.
If you wanted to sell some green and slimy chicken, and you say, "Hey, would you like some green and slimy chicken?" and someone purchases it, saying, "Yes, I would love that green and slimy chicken," then I think that's fine.
If they make it clear that that is what they're selling, it has to be clear that that is what they're selling.
Right. It has to be clear anyway. If they don't make that clear, then that's fraud. You don't need the extra laws.
If someone wants to buy my green and slimy chicken, I am going to make them sign a release of liability.
Right, to make sure, because a jury might not believe that you did that your customer really did know it was green and slimy.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
That's fair enough.
I'm against all of that. I think that, again, there's an obligation on the state as a whole. Wait a second, you think I'll put the point. So there's no obligation in the state to ensure that its citizens are having the rights taken care of, and that they realize that at times people are going to make decisions based on like money choices, and they have to try and ensure that people like stay healthy and stuff. It's the reason we don't allow drink driving, because you might be perfectly fine, you might die in the crash, you might also kill someone else, right? We don't think that you should be able to kill anyone else, and that if you're selling like unregulated shit or shit that's going to give you salmonella, we don't allow that to happen as a state, because that can harm someone else, and that's not a good thing to happen.
Wait. But so what if? But I just want to quickly check. What if it's voluntary?
Even if it's voluntary, we don't allow it anyway as is. We don't allow people to drink, like, we don't allow people to take food that's not healthy for them. Like, we don't allow them to like buy.
Oh, yeah, that's a dangerous precedent, right? You're saying that people shouldn't be allowed to eat food that isn't healthy for them?
No, I mean food that is actually going to most likely make them sick. Like, you're allowed to.
We don't willingly.
I think we don't allow
food.
If I eat nothing,
We don't willingly sell food that is poison.
If I eat nothing but sherbet for like 3 weeks,
No, hang
it
on,
is
hang on.
definitely
We do sell
sick,
food that is
but I don't
poison. You can go to the store and buy poison.
Okay, I want to end the stream now, but you guys can keep talking.
Fair enough.
No, we can.
Well,
Okay.
bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
We'll never know how this ends.
Bye, boy.